I guess, members of the audience who did the YouTube link. Okay, whoops. I guess I didn't have as much slack as I thought. Anyway. Welcome to I Bring Soviet Sexual Chaos to America, number 79. So.
We'll keep the red flag flying.
Absolutely. Yeah, you know, it was actually a line by Sandy Rios in WorldNet Daily. Yes, that it's straight off of Right Wing Watch. It's like you can't make this stuff up. I mean, they basically just like make their own. I don't know, advertising, comedy, whatever it is, material.
Yeah, not unless you're paid, Navia. You couldn't make it up unless you were paid.
I don't think getting paid is going to help anyone make up something like this. Because a lot of those conservative commentators are getting paid, and most of what they put out is just like, I don't know, kind of boring. So,
yeah.
When you dredge through it and finally dig up the snappy phrase, like, I guess she says liberals are causing Soviet sexual chaos. Yeah, that's what do they call it? It's not a gold mine, even though that's a phrase that gets used. Yeah, there's something.
Everybody loves a bit of alliteration. Okay.
Yeah.
But also, you know, I do think there's something to be said. I mean, it's not communism, maybe, but socialism, right? I mean, there is something to be said about socialism becoming the dominant force.
I don't think socialism doesn't quite does what you quite want it to. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. Okay. It means America moving left in terms of the European model. Maybe not left in terms of the American model, but...
Yeah. Welfare state fairs are probably more what you're thinking of than socialism per se.
Yeah, I think when that net becomes big enough, then, you know, a lot of migration becomes pointless.
Yeah, we just need to get things like the NHS and council housing out to Zimbabwe and Papua New Guinea and such, right?
Exactly. You got it in one.
Yeah.
America's a good place to start.
I don't know. I'm like just, hey, let me go over there and, you know, and I'm fine with working on Zimbabwe and Papua New Guinea first. So there you go.
Are you talking about where to start the revolution?
In a manner of speaking.
Well, the question is, what do you think the revolution is? Right?
Well, you tell me. It's your revolution.
No, I mean, it's a good question. It's a really good question. What is the revolution?
I think it's a lot more like the Industrial Revolution, or it's going to be.
Well, wait.
What?
What kind of revolution are you talking about? The communist one?
No, I think what we're trying to get to is what is, you know, clearly a revolution will happen at some point. But what is it?
Oh.
What does it look like? All right, because the Western democracies can't carry on in boom and bust cycles forever, right? Eventually products become scarce at the end of a bust, and then everybody's fucked, right? So that can't happen.
I think there's going to be the... Well, yeah, I think there's going to be the...
Tendency the rate of profit fall and such, and what is it, Marx and all that is, gets pretty obvious because if you're quote-unquote preying on or whatever it is, the, I guess, wage earning class is earning linear in time and such, you have a pretty obvious kind of limitation that their, I guess, wages, earnings, in effect, transfer payments are what give rise to any kind of ability to profit and such. And fuck, my lawyer's upstairs.
Right, but that just leads around the cycle again, though. Right, and all that happens then is they realise they pay more to the middle classes, and off we go again, right?
Well, they're just soaking up their own, tax.
Sorry, you're cutting up, Nadia. Can you say that again? Cutting up for me.
They pay. Fuck. Come on.
Sorry, yeah, you were cutting.
They are eating their own taxes that they pay, as opposed to making anything that's really profit. I mean, you just do basic accounting on where all of it comes from and goes to. You don't need some kind of Hegelian oddities with contradictions. I guess having some kind of meaning. I mean, I don't know. I think it goes through maybe, but still.
Right. The point I get to is it's the narrowing of the middle class that's going to cause the revolution, right?
It's what about the middle class?
When the middle class becomes narrower and there's less people in it, that's when the problem starts.
No, I don't really think it has to do with that kind of distribution. Basically between, rentiers and wage earners, right? So strictly speaking, doctors would be wage earners, even though they're making like $500,000 a year.
All depends on what doctors you're talking about. Here in Czech Republic, doctors are fucking dirt poor.
Okay, well, U.S. doctors who specialize in lucrative specialties.
We have private doctors who are not exactly like millionaires, but they do make good money.
Well,
still,
it doesn't actually matter that the paycheck's really huge. NBA stars, how about that? Or sports, whatever.
Well,
I mean, they're black. They're black. They don't count. No, I'm kidding. That's
a really good example. Yeah. I think that's a really good example because you're just pointing out distortions in what would be a socialist system. Right. Clearly, any socialist system should value those things which it provides, and doctors are one of those things it provides.
What do you mean distortion?
Well, to say that the value of the players themselves are not representative of what they do to society.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, and that seems to me quite clear because what they really do is game. Right now, that's very entertaining, and they do it in the most entertaining way amongst 300 million people. Right, so I'm not saying that they shouldn't be rewarded for doing such things, but in value against, a heart surgeon. What are we talking about? What do we value in society?
Argument on that basis. Oh, sorry.
What do we value in society if we value the NBA player over the heart surgeon?
Well, a trouble with an argument on that basis is it'll fall to the subjectivity value systems, because there are going to be subjective value theorists, right? And in fact, a lot of people would grant some element of subjectivity of value. So.
Yeah, right. But I'm just saying from, you know, the perspective of the socialist system, which provides healthcare.
You mean a welfare state system?
Yeah, right. Which provides healthcare, okay, and doesn't provide basketball. Yeah, from that perspective, clearly we should value the heart surgeon over the NBA player.
Well, yeah, it's going to be some consideration of objectives and values and such that various kinds of systems serve, and I mean, to the extent that one's going on with this matter of subjective value, well, the feat of it is, in effect, involves the arbitration between the, I guess, values of various people and such, right? So, for instance, there are usually some pretty obvious kind of, well, you might say shared values, like, well, suffering, which maybe that's a bit analytic or something like that, but, well, for most it's some forms of pain or whatever. Those things, you know, repulse people, right? So, question is, does it actually achieve some kind of outcome like that? Or sorry, does it actually, you know, optimize a metric like that? And well, the answer is no. You can pretty easily see in game theoretic affairs like the prisoner's dilemma and, you know, the whole the competitive Nash equilibrium affairs that the you know, cooperative ones have aggregate utilities and such that exceed the competitive ones, right? So.
Yeah. Okay, Nadia, are you walking or something? Are you walking?
Yes. Yes.
When you're walking, it's moving the phone and it's cutting out every fourth or fifth word or something. Just every now and again. It's making it hard. I'm kind of following you. So what values then does it imply? What are the necessary values, do you think, for a socialist system?
I don't think there can be. I don't think that's kind of a well-formed question. I think it's more of a issue of what values will have. Kind of an empirical question. And I'm going into actually buy some things. Hang on.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, obviously malformed because it's too wide now. Art. Perhaps I should play my guitar for a short while. Do this interlude. Hey, Pom.
Well, there's music in here, so.
Whoa.
Okay. So go ahead.
Nope, nothing here. Pom's just joined. Welcome, Pom.
How are you?
Interesting.
Well, yeah. Well, the cooperative maximization of Zen card says again.
Well, okay.
Cooperative maximization of oh shit.
Whoa, whoa. I'm wiping.
Okay, sorry about that. Headset cut out again as usual. Anyway, the yeah, cooperative maximization of aggregate utility is well, one of the relatively obvious things one could have as an objective, and they're also like what's it? Multi-objective optimization affairs that you know go on with say, I guess try to ensure that some kind of baseline is achieved and so on, right? So, but basically you can like constrain the optimization, etc., to go about ensuring some kind of minimum standard as a constraint. And what the fuck?
What? I don't have my. Are you on video, Nadia? Well, you're walking. Oh, you are. Cool. Let's have a look around.
I'm walking back from the gas station.
Yeah. Can we have a look around?
Okay, I'll be right back as fast as I can walk and all that. All right. I hear you very well. I'll walk back up to the house. I can't really hear you very well. Okay.
Nadia.
What?
Can we? Can you show the camera around so we can see New York a little bit?
Anyway, this is Staten Island. I've wandered around before, and maybe not so interesting from the I guess point of view of street level.
Okay.
So anyway,
Yeah. I did have a question for you.
Sorry?
I did have a question for you.
Okay.
Which was, bearing what you just said in mind, what does the revolution look like now?
What is the revolution? What?
What does it look like now?
Well, I'm not really sure. It's I don't know, happening in a sense or whatever. I think the kinds of well, things that would I guess disturb the capital system or whatever it is are probably not entirely to well, what you might call crisis level. I mean, strictly as a distributive kind of affair, there's some artificiality to it that I think doesn't really make that the entire make or break issue. Because the principle, even if you arrive at a steady state where, say, the rate of profit is limited or something, then, well, all that's really happened is that you just have a kind of money cycle or whatever. It's actually, I think, the sort of misallocation of physical material resources and such that will basically break it. Probably the biggest one being like fossil fuels and such. And welcome, Iron.
Energy. Iron, I can see in the side chat there you're saying you're getting some power outages. Where are you?
Yeah, it's been super windy over here, so all the trees are blowing over and stuff.
Oh, cool. That's Canada, isn't it?
Yeah, I live in British Columbia.
Very nice.
Yeah, so if I randomly disappear again, it's because the power went out.
It seems Canada does have a few problems with its power supplies. Wasn't there a famous a power outage due to the aurora or something?
I don't know about that. I think it depends on the area, because at least in the part of BC that I'm in, we're all on hydropower, so our power sources are different from other parts of the country.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I think it was in Toronto, the power outages, most of Ontario.
Yeah, that would make sense. I don't think they have much hydropower out there.
Good. So, anybody else got a topic? Are you there, Dex? Hal? Iron?
I am. I've been reading up on philosophy the whole time, though, so it won't be anything interesting.
Okay. Any discovery you've made in the last 25 minutes?
In the last 25 minutes, I've been playing games, so that's why I've been quiet. I shouldn't be doing this, taking up a spot, but pretty empty here, anyways. No, I'm just what have? I've been. What have I been talking about? Did you watch Alex Malpass in Helena Handbasket's room yesterday?
I didn't know.
No.
It's going on my list. It's on my list.
So yeah, he did a little lecture, like intro to logic, which was I thought it was pretty well done. Yeah, he kind of I don't think he I don't know though, because like I followed it because I already I read basically read about it, so I sort of understood the concepts that he was introducing. I don't know. I wish Gus was still here because I wanted to ask him if he could give me a if he can give me a modus ponens syllogism. see if he remembers.
Now you say it like that, I've got no idea. But yeah, I know. Yeah.
Right.
I went through it a while with Dave S, and yeah, it was kind of like, yeah, I think I've got it.
Yeah. Sort of. Let's see what else. I've been talking to Darwin's offline. I was talking to him for almost 2 hours.
Right.
I mean, his view is interesting. It's just it's so embattled, so entrenched, right? That it's very difficult for me to discuss even simple things like I've been reading up on foundationalism, right? Which is foundationalism is a theory for justification in knowledge. So, sort of it when you say you know something, you're asserting that you've done your due diligence to investigate the claim that you're doing, right? Well, foundationalism is a theory that tells you whether you have done your due, like it enables you to identify whether you've done that due diligence or not.
Okay. Then it's a process.
Exactly, right. It's a process, right? And then there's sort of foundationalism, there's coherentism, and what's the other major one? Reliabilism. That's the other one. So those are sort of the three main ones from what I understand. And people are always debating which one you ought to use. So when they say that, like foundationalism has fallen out of favor, it simply means that some of the like if you are a foundationalist, maybe you should try some other. Maybe your justifications are not that great for your knowledge. So, but anyway, so I've been discussing like just even the basics of foundationalism with him, and it's been really tough because he will challenge me in every single thing. It's impossible, and I disagree with a lot of things that he says. Yeah. So it's one of those things where I don't know. Do you follow any of the conversations that Trey Jaslow has?
Not too many, to be honest. It's a while back when he was talking with JD.
Oh yeah, those are the best. Trey, yeah.
I think I was in one of them as well, and after about 10 minutes, I just went, "Yeah, I think I've got where you're coming from now, mate." So,
yeah.
But, whatever. I mean, yeah, okay. I think it's interesting I've found with Darwin's that, because you can so quickly back him into his precept view, it's hardly worth having a conversation about anything. Even if you stay away from that topic with him, all right, eventually, if you're right about a point, he's eventually just going to pull it out of the bag and go, yeah, but you're not,
This is what I realized, is that if he brings up the precept view, that actually means you've won, right? This is like whatever the topic is, whether you're discussing knowledge or morality or anything, right? If he pulls out the precept card, that means he's got nothing else, basically. So that's sort of how I feel good about the precept coming out. That's how I sort of view it.
But the point I'm kind of making, it's so easy to back into it, right? On virtually any of the points it brings up, right? Know that there's going to be a serious flaw in the logic somewhere because it's resting on this, what his foundational view is, right?
Yeah. Well,
and he just digs so quickly to it. It means he wants to bring it out of the bag as soon as possible.
Yeah. It is frustrating, right? Because it shuts down. Anytime that I feel like conversations going in a sort of productive direction, and I don't mean like I'm winning or anything like that. I'm just talking about even like mere agreement on something, right? Just a mere agreement, right? No, that can't happen. It has to get, you pull out the precept card where there can be no agreement, even though there technically can.
That's why it's worse, because also another way of saying it is that we can agree to disagree, that there's no possibility of that either.
Yeah.
We can just say, I can say, I just disagree with you about that particular point. Let's just move on as if we've, just accepted that we're going to be different on this and carry on the conversation for the sake of there are other things besides that disagreement. There's no chance of that.
You wusses. You wusses. You can't even justify the possibility of meaning. Sorry. I just threw it. Hey guys.
I was listening. Hydrotropic, yeah. So, like one interesting.
Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead, Nadia.
I would deny meaning as commonly conceived, but still.
Now, carry on, guys. I'm listening. I want to add something in a bit about that, but go ahead.
But like a funny exchange that, well, I don't know if it's funny or sad or something, but so we were talking about falsifying the Christian God, and he's like, well, if you find the body of Jesus, that would be a contradiction to the Bible, so that would falsify it. I'm like, cool, so we agree on something. He's like, no. I'm like, what do you mean? Well, you see, in my view, it is impossible to find the body of Jesus.
Of course it is.
So he was saying, if I were you, then yes, that would be a contradiction and it would falsify. But in my view, it is impossible to find the body of Jesus. So I basically asked him, so if we find a body and we think it's Jesus, you'll just say, no, it's not. It can't be. Right? And he's like, yep. That's what he said. He's like, nope, it won't be the body of Jesus. You won't find it. So, it's like there's no common ground, literally. Well, I mean...
Dex.
That's why I think that's why it's worth chasing the precept straight away.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's not worth having a conversation on any other topic. Go ahead, you.
Yeah. So Dex, why on his view? I love that. In my worldview, there's something wrong with that. I suspect. Right? I found so I forgot what it was that's wrong with it. Why would it be impossible? Why can't God make it so that he's lied or he creates the body of Jesus for a greater good? Why not? Why would it be impossible on his view?
That's exactly what would happen. The moment you find the body of Jesus, they would just start saying that God put it there so that it would draw more people to believe in Jesus.
Yeah.
It's what I pointed out to him earlier in the conversation when he said, oh, I said, there's some music, and he goes, it's all right, it's my phone. I said, oh, it's your dog. And he said, no, I know it couldn't be my dog. And I went, oh, so quick to discount miracles.
Good one.
That was good, yeah. Yeah.
The fucker, just chase him straight to it.
Here's the other thing, right? So it seems that presuppers and a lot of people are concerned with justification. right?
Yes.
This is the main thing. It's all about justification. So, I represent that as going downwards, right? You're trying to find a foundation. See all these metaphors: foundation, basis. It's going downwards, right? Well, what about going upwards, right? Say you had a nice justification for stuff. Why would that guarantee that you could go upwards okay? Do you see what I'm saying?
Right,
Right.
like
So if you had a nice justification, done and dusted, well, why would that mean that you had a worldview that could actually do anything by going upwards?
yeah.
In other words, how does he know that the well, let's put it in justification terms. How does he know that things he doesn't know that that what am I saying? That you could justify everything that you need by whatever standards from what you have as your foundation. Something like that. I'm just exploring this issue. Why not go upwards? Why not say that doesn't mean you've solved the problem of going upwards properly?
Right.
I know I'm not being clear, but I'm just throwing that as provocation to maybe construct something clearer.
Right. Well, like one example would be, like for example, classical foundationalism. One of the reasons it was rejected is because it was simply far too restrictive. So you can have like this great base, right? That's rock solid, but it doesn't actually allow you to do much in terms of what you can justify. So the few things that you can justify and the few paths you can take, sure, they seem really reliable and dependable, but a different model that's less restrictive will allow you to make far more knowledge claims and therefore maybe have more utility, right? You'll be able to do more with it. You'll be able to accomplish more with it. So something like that.
Yeah, I think
A tool that's it's like a bigger hammer can hit more nails. Maybe not as precisely, but something like that.
So say let's consider, right? He thinks that when there's all these issues, right? There's so many under this. It's like multiplying different cans of worms. So when he says in his worldview, and actually this relates to what I was saying in my worldview. What the hell is a worldview? There's a philosopher's construction of a worldview, right? So that might be mostly consisting of propositions and their logical relations, right? But not necessarily restricted to it, which is now you have in the back door, you have the psychologist's idea of a worldview. And the psychologist's idea of a worldview doesn't have to be consistent. Now, when you ask him about his worldview, well, which one is he talking about? Now, let's say he's talking about the philosopher's worldview, and that's all fine, done and dusted, and nice and tidy. But what about the other one? Right? And what if his experience, in his other one, he can't justify, he can't sort out things in the other one. So why would it matter if he's got a nice, tidy little philosopher's worldview? Say I had one, right? But everything that I did just went against it or wasn't really consistent with it. But I deluded myself into thinking otherwise. What's he going to do? Say, well, God has told me infallibly that that's not the case. It's like they just load up everything that's a problem. It becomes, sorted out by saying God justifies it all, and it's all sorted out. And they lie to themselves. Go ahead.
I just question one word you used in that, which is that really a philosophical view?
Say that again. Sorry.
Well, is that really a philosophical view to be a presuppositionalist and say God? Right?
Oh, no, definitely not. No, I'm just saying that what I meant was that, there's two senses of worldview that he might be operating with and not distinguishing between, that's all.
Yeah, but he has to be operating in the second one, the psychological one.
Yeah.
Would be my argument, because it's not philosophy. I mean.
Right. So
therefore it is psychological. Is what I'm saying. And when he says my word, what he's really referring to, in my kind of humble view, is that he's saying, no, I'm not going to do an external critique of my views, as long as I believe them to be logically coherent, and I believe presuppositions to be logically coherent, then you can't say anything against it.
Okay,
So
I think there's some kind of theistic I guess meta-episteme or some such, kind of like there's theistic meta-ethics or something.
If you've got a nice, well, if he's got a nice and tidy, philosophical, as in, this proposition is justified, everything's sorted out, the problems of philosophy are solved. If he doesn't, how does he know he actually lives that? What's he going to say? Well, because I know it, because God. What? In other words, what's the point if he doesn't know that he's living that? I don't see what the point is. He could have this. We can make. I can make up this nice, tidy. Let's say I could. I don't think I can. But if I'm not actually living it, then why even bother with this issue? I've got the right one and you haven't. So the question would be, how do you know you're living it? And what's he going to do? Pull out, well, because I know because the Holy Spirit told me to. So, I mean, well, I don't know. I don't get it.
Well, it's psychological. Didn't you say that in the first place? I mean, it's a patch.
Are you talking about Darwin specifically?
Well, anyone.
Yeah, specifically in Darwin's case.
Right, but I'm talking about Darwin and anyone else who's, doing this pre-supper routine.
Well, the only question I would have then is, what are you supposed to do if your worldview strictly tells you not to look at it externally?
Well, exactly. How can that be philosophy? How can that claim to be philosophy?
Well, you can't even ask that because you don't have the possibility of meaning. So shut up. I'm joking.
Oh, I see.
Well, again, I just think
Oh, that's not a real question because the notion of I guess communication in terms of commonly conceived meaning is well, basically begs the question or whatever it is against. I guess it's support that some kind of meaning is, or the meaning as commonly conceived is necessary. So.
Yeah, I know there's all those issues. I'm just joking around with Ian.
I think they have like a genuine interest in philosophy, some of them, because they like to do philosophy within their own circle. So like theological philosophy, I guess, would be is historically like a big thing in Christian communities. But I think they just have certain things that they don't want to criticize, or certain advantages they don't want to look from.
Mm-hmm. And that presumably has a psychological basis why they don't want to do that, right? You'd agree?
Yeah, I think so. I think they would probably explain it in a different way, but yeah, I think that's fair.
So you're calling? Oh no, I won't say that. I was going to straw man your argument like a proper theory. So it's a patch. So why don't you need the patch, guys? Nadia, why don't you need the patch?
Why don't I do what?
Why don't you need the patch? The theological patch.
Why don't you need the patch?
Why, specifically, why do you not require a theological patch? A psychological.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Okay. Can anybody else answer the question then first? What makes you comfortable not believing?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think because at least in my own personal view of things, I do believe in certain things. I just don't believe in the literal God from some random desert tribe that wrote their stuff down in a book. That's all.
I don't know it any other way. Sorry?
Yeah, okay, cool.
I don't know it any other way, so there's no... I'm sorry. I don't know it any other way, so... I don't know, or whatever it is, any kind of contrasting stance with respect to that I would deem more or less comfortable. Or, for that matter, why they would differ in that respect. Go ahead.
I suppose one argument that could be made is that even if you grant that sort of the deistic concept of the God, so atemporal, immaterial creator, source of the universe, can be the case. I don't see how that would be different than an immaterial, atemporal, non-conscious cause of the universe, right? So there's no way for me to choose one or the other. But the thing is that in terms of believing one or the other, it really doesn't matter which one you believe, because if it's a deistic God, it doesn't actually interfere with anything. What does it mean to say that? In fact, it doesn't even mean that it still exists, right? So in this case, to say, I mean, I don't know if I could actually say that I'm atheistic towards it, but I don't understand what it would mean to. I don't think I would be justified to say that I know it exists.
You haven't been persuaded by William Lane Craig's argument that the cause of the universe has to have, has to be an agent?
An agent? No.
It's such a valid, awesome argument.
I know.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, since I haven't been persuaded by that, so then what?
Well, a big part of it's going to depend on what your view of the afterlife is, since that's like really what we're all talking about when we talk about these things, is they believe they're going to turn into a soul and that they can walk around and like maybe they could just fly in their space yacht to visit this deistic God and convince him to talk to them or something. I don't really know what they expect.
But like an afterlife is conceivable even without there being a creator. I mean, you could still believe in souls and reincarnation and all that jazz. And yeah. So you can believe in all of that without actually believing that a creator ever existed or still exists.
Yeah, I guess theoretically you could.
Well, there's
many examples too. Historically, there's probably a lot of examples of religions like that.
I mean, once you depart from the deistic God, it sort of becomes because an agent can have, we can conceive of many different agents with different kinds of personalities. For example, we could start with a God that we will conceive of as good, as morally good, and we can conceive of one that's morally evil. And seems that there's no reason to choose one or the other, and there's sort of degrees of evil and degrees of good, and there can be a God that's sort of amoral and neutral, doesn't even know about us. So these God concepts start to multiply. Basically. the amount of gods that we can conceive of is limited only by our imagination at that point. So obviously you cannot, I think by virtue of that, you could say that that these gods do not exist, because many of them would contradict each other.
I think the argument from Contrarides, I guess it applies to like Pascal's wager and personal experience, right?
I think you can say they don't exist, but I think you can also try and justify their existence through alternative, like material explanations. So I mean, for people who have a wide range of different gods, like a pantheon of say 10 different gods, if they justify those as being, I don't know, technologically advanced aliens or something like that, then they can have contradictory dispositions or personalities and still be quote unquote real. Like they could still advocate them having actually existed.
Am I still connected?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. Not feeling it. Okay. Where were we again?
Hold on, I'm gonna get a cup of coffee. I'll be right back.
Okay. Anyone? Well, are you saying what good does it do them to believe in a god or whatever? Does it? You asking if it bolsters any of their philosophical positions, or if it actually undermines them, and that sort of thing? Try to figure out the question.
Could you repeat the question for me?
Well, part of it was what the question was, but I was trying to say, does it somehow bolster their philosophical positions, or does it somehow undermine them?
Right. I think if you're talking about precepts, presumably. And I would say, yeah, it undermines them clearly, because it can't be a philosophical position to say I will only do an internal critique on my worldview.
Okay. I just got one of the bizarre Facebook message or something.
Like a band, yeah. I need to play like a hum.
Oh, I know who this is. Okay. Yeah, is anybody there? Wow, how did it go dead? Somebody vacuum out.
Hello. Who are you talking to?
Welcome back, Iron Nation. Okay. Okay. Fox in the know.
Fox in the know. Yeah. Hi, Fox.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening.
I was just away for a minute. What happened?
Somehow I think it was some kind of theistic epistemology or some such. So, yeah, I don't see anyone else running live.
Did you hear the question I asked, Nadia?
Which question?
Well, the one about. Well, I'm just asking whether you think it's a philosophical view to only do an internal critique on your worldview.
Well, it's I guess some kind of way that people have to operate when they're. I suppose the differences are too vast and irreconcilable.
Right. So it's philosophy, but it's not maybe good philosophy. Can we say that?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess you're also referring to like a total belief set as opposed to Boston's sort of conception of whatever they are, like foundational principles and such.
Yeah, no, I think we're accepting that the position is really a psychological one rather than a philosophical one.
Yeah, because I think even amongst the Greek philosophers belonging to specific schools, they could argue with each other about what was true or what was accurate if they wanted to, but even if they didn't, respective to their school, they'd still be referred to as philosophers.
Mm. Yeah, that's fair enough.
So I think it's more of how much value you put in the competition of different schools of thought.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't like competition.
Interesting. book do you read? That's what it comes down to, you're saying?
What is what again?
Which book do you read? Right? Schopenhauer, Jesus, whomever, Lao Tse, the Buddha.
Yeah, and then also whether or not those people are considered philosophers depends on how much stock you put in competition, I would say. So I mean, if you're a person who doesn't like competition, you put no value in one philosophy being correct over another, then there's no real reason to criticize somebody who doesn't pursue other philosophies or challenge their own, because there's no value. Like, the point of challenging your philosophy is to make it more robust and competitive, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I suppose.
Sure.
I think the tower's got quite high, right? The tower's got quite high. We can't just, learn things at a basic level anymore and expect we've got the whole subject covered. Far from it in most subject cases. So even if you spend 10 years on the subject, you're still not really going to grasp the full depth of what's been written previously, necessarily, right? So I think that's a sign of it. The multiplying complexities.
Right, because at the end of the day, when we're talking about truth, we're talking about the truth that we can justify compared to somebody else's criticism that it's not true, right? Because otherwise, if we're just talking about your own personal truth, everyone can have their own personal truth or philosophy, and it doesn't really matter what they think.
Well, I wouldn't say it doesn't matter, but but of course it matters. They're a human being.
Right, but it only matters insofar as you have to justify it to other people. So, I mean, if you believed the sky was made of, like, I don't know, marshmallows or something, that wouldn't matter until you had to justify that belief to account for your actions or something like that.
Yes, I see. What does that lead to then? That we can have false beliefs and they don't necessarily kill us?
Yeah, I think that depends on how strict you are with the truth and applying the truth to your life. Because some people are more strict than others. Like, for example, I'm not too strict with holding people to certain facts because I recognize the value of a white lie. So if people want to tell themselves they're souls and that at the end of the day, when they die, they're going to like go live with each other in heaven or something, I think that's a white lie that we can allow that isn't too damaging.
Okay, I mean, I would disagree in some senses, but not in the way you say it. I would agree with you. Obviously, when you multiply that out to everybody, I think it becomes a different proposition, but that's another story. I would just ask about, do you feel maybe, what is the, let me just phrase it correctly, what does idealism mean in philosophy? And I know it's probably a changing topic, but I would really like to know what some of the philosophical definitions and what the ramifications of holding those views mean.
I'm not sure. I'm not that well versed on philosophy.
Yeah, holds that. Well, matter is product of mind, or that mind is the sole property bearer and all that. Property bearer is called a substance, right?
I see. So it's the other side of, well, it's the mind side of dualism, I guess. So.
Yeah, kind of reverse dualism, yeah. think have among us a few transcendental idealists who may further clarify their position. I don't know if Hal or Jack care to speak on transcendental idealism, or I don't know where anyone else stands.
What's the question?
Oh, Simon was just asking what idealism was in philosophy.
Well, I think it's the idea that everything in reality is mental.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what are the kind of ramifications of that, logically speaking? And where does that lead you to? I mean, other than, I guess, God exists, etc., but not a deistic version, presumably.
Well, I mean, I don't think you have to believe God exists to be an idealist.
Okay, so if you believe that there's everything comes from the mind, then surely that's implying that before the universe there was a mind for everything to come from.
No, you could just believe that there were eternal mental structures, something like that. Or you could believe that that time had a beginning, and that from the first moment of time, everything was mental.
Mm-hmm. Mm. It's hard to see how you wouldn't label it God if you really believed that the mind was the dominant material thing. I don't know. That's a horrible way to say it, of course.
Yeah.
Well, it's just the idea that there's no non-mental facts that are external to our mind. So I'm not sure why there has to be a God there. I mean, it's true that some people did try to argue that that meant that there has to be a God there, but I don't see why it has to be that way.
Okay. That's cool. Mm. On the ground it's not necessary. Okay, that's cool. So I've noticed that people have this belief in the round tend to look at everything as a dichotomy, and that's an overgeneralization to make the point rather than something which is necessarily true. Would you agree with that? Or?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
I'm saying that people that hold this belief seem to prefer questions as a dichotomy to the exclusion of a middle.
For people who hold this view, it was hard to hear what you were saying. People who hold this view, what?
I'll try and speak a bit closer. People that hold this view tend to prefer all questions as a dichotomy. Not just prefer it, but almost insist upon it.
I don't know whether that's true or not.
Rather than saying whether it's a true statement or not, what's your impression?
I don't really encounter many idealists. I mean, they're kind of rare.
Okay. How about the second part of the question, which was people who almost insist upon all questions being a dichotomy or being reduced to a dichotomy? Have you come across that?
You mean people who think of everything in terms of either or?
Indeed.
I guess I don't really have an opinion about that.
Okay. It seems to me one of the more frustrating traits that I come across when I'm talking to theists, in particular.
Yeah, but when you have that situation, I guess what you tend to find is that it will be people who will try to pigeonhole you into a particular box, and then say, well, because that can't account for X, whether it be logic or truth or whatever it is, therefore there has to be something else that does, and then they can then just use God as a sufficiently vague kind of being, and then just say, well, that covers it all. So I think I kind of get where you're coming from on that.
Mm. Yeah, that's
Fox, I didn't realize you.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I just sorted out my microphone. And my dog as well.
I'm sorry.
Playing up.
Sorry, Jack, because you're on the phone, every time you talk, if someone else isn't muted, it's really hard to hear you. So I'm going to try and stay quiet while you talk for a little while.
Oh, but I thought you were trying to say something. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, not at all, not at all. It's fine. I think you've answered the question. I mean, well, obviously not the second part, but I was digging at this thing of why, the tactic that gets used commonly, as Fox pointed it out so well. And I'd be interested to know what kind of defense you use in terms of, do you always just say, well, it's not a dichotomy, therefore whatever, or is there a more subtle way to go at it?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you're talking specifically about idealism or if you're talking about it in general.
Yeah, I mean, it tends to go. I'm specifically myself. I've had an experience with somebody who claims to be an idealist, and this was the tactic time again that I kept coming across, which was, reduce all my arguments to black and white, and therefore counting my. Hang on, Dex, you're making a bit of noise there. That's how much I'm lagging. Okay, so yeah, I mean that's specifically where I'm getting to. This person just continually used these dichotomies, or alleged dichotomies, to discount my position. So I was just wondering if there's some way that you might approach getting out of it, or just in general.
I guess one way, Simon, might be to try to identify whether or not it's a false dichotomy, right? I mean, I often think that questions kind of shoehorned into trying to spit out a dichotomy. So, like the what accounts for logic is a classic example. There's either God accounts for logic or something else does, or and then they try and take off what everything else couldn't account for logic, and then by default, God accounts for logic. Yeah, but then the other way about answering that would be to ask, well, does anything have to account for logic? I mean, just use that specific example. Or when we talk about, well, if the mind isn't physical, then it must be non-physical, right? But I mean that's not, how have they determined that it's not physical? You've got to look at the arguments for that.
Yeah.
And more often than not, it's not conclusive. So the way that they like to operate is to shut down one of the half of the options available. So you could look at to see whether or not that's warranted, and also you could see whether or not the initial problem in the first place has been properly construed. That's what I would tend to do.
Yeah.
So
that does answer the question.
Yeah, well, it does come up a lot. I think you find, especially when you talk to theists of a particular bent, they do try to railroad you to, you've got two options, one's more plausible than the other. And they will then have all their stock arguments for why, the non-God option is inferior. Therefore, the God option by magic is just more plausible, even if it isn't massively plausible. So you get something like the calam is a classic example. It's not necessarily a dichotomy, but it's a way of closing down the other options to say that this highly implausible conclusion is actually a good explanation.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always just worth stepping back and trying to look at what the kind of the metaphysical import is there. I mean, what we're talking about, what intuitions have we got in play there? What particular biases are we thinking? And I think ask yourself what makes a good explanation. I mean, does that really answer the question well, or does it just seem to answer the question because all the other questions are crap? Or have we made some earlier mistake where we misjudged something which maybe seemed more plausible than at that point, but when we've taken it to further logical conclusions, it's actually become a lot more problematic.
Right.
So that's another way of looking. I mean, I tried to do that with Matt Bell on the philosophy of time, for instance, because in his version of the Kalam, he says that something like an A theory of time which has temporal becoming is more plausible than any other theory of time. So even if you granted that, the problem is it isn't as if the implausibility there is that massive. But once you take that one of those options off the table and you follow that his preferred option further down the line, it leads to highly implausible conclusions. So one of the options would be, I think, to go back and think, well, if that is the conclusion of adopting that particular theory of time, then actually I would be inclined to see what happens if I chose the initially less plausible option. And if you do choose the initially less plausible option, you might actually find that once you work through the initial implausibility, you find actually it's a lot more, it's a lot better an explanation than what happens if you then go with the additional problems that pop up later down the line. So I don't know if that's any help.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And the same kind of thing works in reverse, right? With like folk wisdom that people assume is true, but then once you investigate in detail, turns out to be inaccurate.
Yeah. I mean, just by the initial plausibility, I guess, if you lived at a certain place at a certain time in Earth's history, you might find the idea of a round spherical Earth to be less plausible than a flat Earth. But actually, when you start to learn more facts and you start to understand more about what that means and how that explanation starts to become stretched and strained in incorporating new bits of information that you find, actually it leads to it becoming highly implausible that the Earth is flat. Whereas if you, so the initial. Go ahead.
Sorry, and that's obviously because at the time it did seem more plausible. That's when it was written into the Old Testament, the New Testament, etc. Right? So that's the justification that we can give for why these books are incorrect.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this comes down to the role that intuitions, we tend to at a surface level, I think, invoke intuitions heavily because usually they're okay, they're not too bad. And so when we're just going around doing our normal day-to-day business, it might not be that intuition really is all out of sync with how things sort of turn up in the world. But once we start to dig a bit deeper, it might actually be the case that our intuitions map quite badly onto how reality actually is. And once we develop better techniques to investigate reality and get more information from it, actually turns out that our intuitions are out of sync. So at that point, do we abandon those earlier intuitions, or do we stick to them and then try and modify the empirical data around that? I would say that would be a very bad way of doing things, but there are some people who seem to think that that's what we should do. I guess another good example of that is within the philosophy of time. Like if you get from special relativity the idea that there isn't actually a kind of a simultaneous present, what does that mean then for the supposed plausibility of something like like presentism, for instance? So quantum mechanics is the classic example, I guess, where things just seem to not make much sense in comparison to our intuitions, and so there are some people out there that would say no, it just has to sort of line up with our intuitions. We just need to do a few more experiments and we'll get there in the end, and we'll reconcile these two opposing like forces, I guess, in our theories of knowledge. But for me, I think that's kind of an arrogant way of going about it, to expect nature to conform to our intuitions, which are quite a narrow range, I think.
Yeah, I think when you say intuitions, that's quite a vague word when it comes to higher mathematics.
Yeah. definitely. I mean, the idea of infinities, for instance, is just not intuitive at all. And some would say that because it's not intuitive, that it actually makes it impossible. Again, it's putting restrictions on the way that reality is, and it's assuming at the heart of this that we really do carve reality at its joints when we think about it, just from sort of intuitive reflection. And I think we know enough. We should know enough from the fact that our senses can be deceived on a regular basis to know that actually, and if you think that's
when you talk about the the advancements, though, you're just all we're doing really is recognizing the limits within which it was true, recognizing where it's not true, and then developing new models to include that.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think there is a degree of a kind of plasticity, I guess, and we can get better at maybe rehoning our intuitions based on new facts that we learn about the world. But that's difficult to do, and I think if you want to keep the power of intuition as a tool of convincing other people to think like you, or if you base the idea that I suppose God's existence is just intuitively more plausible to so many people. If you then start to hack away at the roots of intuition, I think a few people think that that might damage that, and so they resist that quite heavily.
Yeah, that's interesting, actually. So this modern branch of mathematics actually might be more disturbing than people first thought.
Yeah. I mean,
not that they didn't think it was disturbing, right? But because they did.
Well, some people might find. I mean, I personally find it quite. Yeah, I find it quite interesting when we learn things about reality, or we seem to pick up on things about reality that really do shake up the way we think, and show our intuitions to not be particularly well founded when it comes to, like I say, carving reality at its joints. I think that's interesting. I think that that's something to investigate and push and see how far we can really go, rather than just sort of be the sort of the flat earthers and the creationists that just think that just makes more intuitive sense to me, so I'm going to stick with it whatever.
We had one in the room. Never mind.
Did we? No.
Yeah, I tried to get a hook in there, but it didn't work. Maybe he'll be back.
Who was it? Admin? Is he a flat earther?
No, I think he might be. Well, I don't even know if he's a creationist, but he's definitely.
I think he is. I've heard him a few times in here. Sort of. I mean, it's quite difficult to follow. Doesn't seem to make a great deal of sense, but I think he is. I think he's a creationist. I don't think he's quite a flat earther.
But. You never know.
Maybe.
So Fox.
Go ahead,
sorry,
Jack.
go ahead, Simon.
No, you first.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Damn, I wasn't going to say anything. You go, Jack.
Fox, so Philip told me that you liked our treatment of Matt Bell.
Yeah. Anything that cuts Matt Bell down to size is worthwhile in my opinion.
Well, we've really terrorized him.
Yeah, I think you have.
Has he given you the archive of all the links with timestamps to us smashing him?
No, but I think, to be honest, I watch fairly regularly when I can. I listen at work, so I tend to, if I don't watch it live, I tend to pick up on it. So I've probably seen a lot of it anyway.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll have to get him to give that to you.
But yeah, it's been good to see, because I mean, Matt is someone who, I've had a fair amount of interaction, not necessarily in Hangouts because it tends to blow up, but particularly on his posts on the various posts that he's made for probably about a year, and I mean, it's if anything, it's probably worse in posts because he's less likely. It's his thread, so he's not going to get ejected from it. So it just goes on and on and on. And I mean, yeah, if you talk about stupid things that he says, I mean, look at his posts because they're full of it.
Well, I never looked at those. I mean, the interesting thing that I noticed is that he tends to be pretty reasonable until he gets his back up to the wall. You know.
Yeah, I mean, Matt's he's a relatively smart guy, and he's informed enough to make the opening gambit. He spent a lot of time, as I understand it. He spent decades, studying certain issues around sort of like, say, the Kalam. So he's informed enough to know the objections that are out there in the literature, but yet he doesn't really seem to have developed. I mean, and it's not surprising because I don't think Craig has himself. He's not developed the responses. So his modus operandi is to prevent those from coming up. So he wants to face off against atheists who have very rudimentary objections to the Kalam, so he can then mock that and belittle that and just accuse atheism of not really understanding the Kalam at all. But yeah, it's...
Yeah, well, we've completely humiliated him on the Kalam about at least 3 times. I mean, we had a discussion where we asked him whether simultaneous causation doesn't presuppose time. And we went over it about 12 times, saying, well, doesn't simultaneous mean occurring at the same time? And he said, yes. And so then we would say, so does simultaneous causation presuppose time? And he would say, no. And at that point, you're dealing with moron. I mean, at that point, he's just a moron. And I just said, well, you're a moron. You can't say that what the term means is occurring at the same time, and then say that simultaneous causation doesn't presuppose time, since that's what the term means. And then, then we got him on this thing about, whether God could have an atemporal mind, and he said that God knows things without actually having thoughts, without even having any belief,
Yeah.
And I just said to him, you're a complete fucking idiot. If a belief is if knowledge is defined as a type of belief, saying that God knows things without having beliefs is just stupid. I mean, you're just an idiot,
Yeah,
so,
I don't understand where he's going with that, because I mean, I think it's just an appeal to.
I don't think they're going.
No, I think he'll.
I mean, I think
an appeal to what I can imagine. What Matt would do is he would fall back on an appeal to logical possibility, and he would then accuse you of begging the question of some sort of against the possibility that a mind could be atemporal or thoughtless.
That doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't tell us what he means by mind.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Why call it a mind rather than a glue? You say God has an atemporal glue, then that's fine. I until you can tell me what a glue is, I can't object, But obviously he can't tell me what it is, right? So I'm perfectly happy to reduce the propositions of the Christian claim to a bunch of gibberish, But if they want to actually appeal to concepts that we all understand, then they have to actually meet the criteria of those concepts.
Is this the criticism that I think it is, that an atemporal mind is incoherent because minds are temporal things? I mean, you have to have one thought before another.
Yeah, pretty much. But he was also saying that he thought that God could know things without having any beliefs.
Yeah, and there's also the thing about non-propositional knowledge as well. That it's just sort of like this singular kind of pie of knowledge that you could then divide up into an infinite number of propositions, but God just knows it singularly and not a proposition.
Well, I mean, again, that just isn't really intelligible. We're talking about propositions. No. So, what does it mean to say that he knows the propositions are true, but his awareness of them is not by awareness of the truth of propositions, right? I mean, like, in other words, it's not actually knowledge of propositions. Just nonsense.
I would really struggle. I've never really found a positive mental feature of God's mind that Matt could really admit to God having, that we have and what we recognise as a component of minds. I guess, I don't know, will? I don't know, but then will doesn't...
Yeah, I mean, it just shows that it's illegitimate to even attribute a mind to God, you know.
There's no family resemblance between this supposed God mind and its...
Yeah, so they don't really have any justification for calling it a mind at all, because they can't identify any properties that coincide with what we take minds to be. So they're just sort of pulling a fast one there, as far as I can see. You know?
Yeah, and I think there's also some attempt to appeal to the fact that, well, if it was a personal agent, then it could then choose to end the kind of the prevailing state of it just existing atemporally and all the rest, and then choose to create something, which again doesn't make any sense whatsoever, because also it's unchanging. So they also say that it had an eternal will to create. So in that case, there was literally no time where it was choosing not to do what it always wanted to do, which would mean that it would be simultaneous with its effect, right? Just the same as a impersonal cause, I guess.
Yeah, but that then seems to make the universe a necessary thing, right?
Yeah.
Which seems to violate Orthodox theology, because it's not a contingent fact that God decided to create the universe. I mean, unless they want to say that there are some possible worlds where God doesn't create a universe. But then at that point, the question is, why is the one that was actualized the one with the universe in it? Is it just, oh, he got a call. Okay.
Welcome, Seth.
Uh-oh, why, how is it so quiet? Hello? It's kind of, a little bit silly, but yeah. Yes, it makes a little bit of sense. I guess if you, trying to go in for kinds of,
procedures or whatever it is that I am, they apparently want to have psychologists and psychiatrists make sure. And I guess it's good as some of it's covered by insurance now, but still. Oh dear. Fox in the Know says he has to go walk the dog and asks why talking to Jack has that effect on people. Have you seen the person wandering around with the Google Plus account with the handle Darwin's Didi's dog?
Yeah, but have you seen there's a new one now, Darwin's Deity's phone call and Darwin's Deity's lunch?
Oh, I saw the phone call.
Phone call, like it.
Darwin's Deity's phone call.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I wonder how badly I end up doing dodging questions. Guess it's like Nadia being tabbed out, Nadia doing or going to sleep, and was it Nadia going to some kind of appointment? Yeah, there we go.
It's starting to get dark pretty late here.
What's that?
It's starting to get dark pretty late here. Like it's almost 7 and it's not dark yet.
That's a bald earth lie.
Oh, wow. I'm sure there's some kind of ad hoc accounting that one could do.
It doesn't actually get darker. You just think it does. Wake up, sheep.
Or the government is beaming light in from the sky.
No, they're beaming darkness into your area so that you think that it gets darker later. I don't know. Moonlight makes things cold. Wake up, sheeple.
What was I looking for?
That might be the craziest thing that Pillbox believes. That's just so off the wall.
Bird is a troll.
Everyone says that. I think it's too easy to just call him a troll.
Oh. I don't think it's productive to, anyway.
That too.
Odds are there'll be some kind of grounds you can cut off or whatever it is to dismiss Or disengage, or whatever. Is that notification not good? No. Somebody is texting me, and I think it's California area code. At least don't set it to the hard line. Yeah.
I texted you once last night, and that's it.
Yeah. Don't text the hard line.
I hope I didn't. I don't know what I texted. It was just whatever was listed.
It's listed where?
In the option to text you on Google Hangouts. We've been through this.
That's an actual phone text message, right?
I don't know. You tell me.
It is an actual phone text message. Yeah, there's a problem with that. Yeah, other people in the trusted circle, etc., don't do this. So. Hey, about the what is it? Right. What is it? Idealism. Was it foundationalism or something, or what?
What was about foundationalism?
I'm trying to remember what the topic of the conversation was before it kind of got derailed.
I'm sorry, I didn't derail it, did I?
I think you were largely silent. The point where it went astray. So. What else is over here?
I don't know. I'm taking this new medication and it just like halts my brain. Like I can't think of anything.
Weird. Is that the bupropion?
It's the Wellbutrin.
Yeah, I'm on that for smoking stuff.
Like I literally can't think of anything.
All right, everybody outside the United States. How excited are you that Donald Trump's going to be our next president?
I'm looking forward to nuclear winter.
We're going to have Ivanka Trump as the first daughter and Melania Trump as the first lady and another hot daughter. And maybe we'll have Sarah Palin as VP, so I'm very excited.
I'm also excited. I'm looking forward to a new golf course in Scotland.
Well, I'm already looking for ways to flee the country.
I mean, I'm not the only one who's like legitimately terrified of that, right? Like actually, I mean, Nadia, of course, is. Nadia would be terrified if Jeb was elected, or even if Colin Powell ran and was elected, Nadia would be terrified. Not that it makes it any less valid, but it's just
basically anyone who won't veto, kill or imprison all the people like me. Yeah, that's there's terror to be had.
Yeah, and I could definitely see why you'd be worried about Rubio, Cruz, or Trump. But I'm like legitimately terrified. I'm pretty terrified of Cruz. I probably should be more terrified of Cruz than I am, because I'm not equally as terrified as Cruz as Trump. But I am legitimately terrified of a Trump presidency. Like, I have a really good relationship with my dad, and I recently called him a fucking moron to his face for supporting Trump.
Yeah. Well, stranglehold in the House and Senate are probably worse than the presidency, per se. Yes, presidency can block things that would have you put away or whatever, but still.
You think Trump would, during the general election, support the legalization of marijuana because it's a populist position?
I don't know. It's not an issue that greatly concerns me.
No, it's not. Well, Trump being glomming onto a populist position for support concerns me. Legalizing marijuana does not concern me that much. I was just having a conversation with a friend the other day who thought, I don't know why he said it, but he mentioned that if Trump gets elected, then we're not going to legalize weed, and I disagree with that. I think that Trump is the kind of person who, if the numbers are right, would say he'd legalize weed. He's the kind of pandering populist.
Well, I mean, if you do detailed surveys on a fair number of like economic policies or whatever, or social policies, a lot of these people are going against it. I mean, they kind of have this I guess field of things where there's not really any money at stake or something like that, and wherever there is, they defy the popular will. I mean, for as much difference as various of these LGBT rights, etc. issues make to me, I mean, there really is kind of like bargaining chip or whatever it is. Not much more, I guess, significant to them than kind of like the branding on their toothpastes and such. Because it doesn't really cost them any money. Or buy them anything either.
But you guys know that Hillary's gonna win anyway.
Mm. Well, even though the what is it? I guess unweighted poll numbers are, I guess, slightly toward Hillary. The trick is that there is malapportionment, and it's not just a straight popular vote. There's this whole like electoral college, whatever, and the flyover country, etc., gets the massive represented. Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, I thought you finished. I haven't asked you this directly. I haven't heard you say this directly, I don't think. But I suspect that you think Bernie Sanders is too far to the right for you?
Yeah, he's too far to my right, but as far as, trying to mitigate something, it would be so.
How do you...
One, I'm in New York, so it's kind of already decided. Number two, I'm, what is it? I mean, it's more of a, trying to mitigate the damage kind of thing than a genuine kind of endorsement, so. But yes, far to my right.
How does Bernie rate for you? I mean, so he's farther to your right, sure. That's pretty non-controversial considering it's you. But how does he rate? Is he acceptable? Is he not acceptable? I mean, is he flee the country scary? Like, you might...
I would not feel compelled to flee the country. Even under Hillary, I wouldn't.
Is there anybody on the right who would be elected in the office that you wouldn't feel compelled to leave the country if they were voted as president?
Did he break up or did I?
I'll repeat. Is there anybody on the right who can conceivably be elected as president? Not even necessarily the people who are running right now, because I think the answer would be obvious, but there's anybody on the right who can conceivably be elected as president that you wouldn't be compelled to flee the country if they were elected?
Basically no, because the party affiliation stuff means they won't veto down the bills. When they pass the stuff to be arrested or executed or whatever, any similarly party affiliated president's not going to veto it.
The main reason why I say that Hillary will win is it's for the same reason that Volkswagen or Opel or all these brands sell way more cars than the more luxurious ones because they are more a niche. And Bernie and the guy with the toupee, I forget his name, Donald, they are both a niche. Like that's how they appeal to me. That's like a more of a niche brand, like the more premium ones, and so like that's how I see it. And Hillary's more like a Volkswagen or like a Volvo or whatever, just an everyday car.
So the national polls right now consistently show Bernie Sanders as doing better in a general election against Trump or Cruz.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that niche. I think Bernie Sanders really is the everyman. I really do. I think Hillary is trying to be the Volkswagen, but I don't think she is.
No, what I mean is she's very bland, like in her positions. That's what I'm saying. Like I'm examining what their positions are, and like Bernie and Trump, they're very niche in their positions. They're not like your regular politicians.
But I don't. I agree they're not like the politicians, but I don't think you could say that their policies are niche when most of the country agrees with the policies that Bernie Sanders wants to put forward.
Oh. No, I meant in terms of a politician. That's what I meant.
Sure, Bernie Sanders is. I mean, I think Ocean said it the other day. He's Mr. Smith, who in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. He is unflappable and consistent.
I think you just have to look who has won before. Like, it's always who has won before. It's always the more bland, the people who don't really say what they're gonna do.
Well, Bernie's won more elections than Hillary has.
Well, we'll see what happens, So when is the primary?
I'm talking about the political career. Hillary was appointed to more political positions, or happened to be married to a politician, and got kind of a political position. Then Bernie has won. Like, he was mayor, he was senator, and he's won all of his positions, and he's won more elections in the long run than Hillary has.
Right.
He lost less. Hillary lost the primaries last time.
Are you aware when the when the Democrats and the Republicans will choose their candidate to represent them?
I think it's is it in June?
Oh, in June. Yeah.
Does Bernie have a vagina?
Yeah, I defended Hillary and Hillary supporters up until she said that. I have a lot of friends who are kind of anti-feminists, mocking Hillary supporters by saying they're just supporting her because she's a woman or she has a vagina. I was like, that's not fair. That's not. Hillary has said nothing like that. She's not asking to be supported because she has a vagina. And then the first Democratic debate, she's asked how would her presidency be different than Obama, and she basically said, I have a vagina. And I was like, oh, well, thank you for making me look like a jackass, Hillary.
Yeah, I would argue probably Bernie Sanders has one as well, but there you go.
Hey, I need to work on getting one. Well, yeah, where is that?
Although, don't you find it a funny line, Jeff?
What's that?
Well, what Hillary said, I mean, it's meant humorously, right? Presumably.
Well, when she said that she has that the difference between her presidency and Obama presidency is, I think she meant that there's a fine line between them.
Well, they're both minorities, surely,
Vagina.
or unlikely to get elected because of their, because, well, never been a black president, never been a woman president. I mean, that's it, down to a fine T, isn't it? So I guess that's what she's referring to.
I don't know.
What, you don't know whether there's ever been a female president?
Yeah, didn't Eisenhower cross-dress? Was it Eisenhower?
What's your name, Dionysus?
There's a rumor that one, I think, or am I thinking of somebody else? There's a rumor that one of the presidents was or was that
I just think there's more than one. Let's face it, it's a very wide world.
Or so, not Herbert Hoover. The FBI guy.
Ronald Reagan?
No.
The FBI person.
Prime candidate, if you ask me.
There's an old head of the FBI.
Well, according to when I type in FBI crossdresser, it says J. Edgar Hoover.
Oh, J. Edgar. The last name right.
Yeah, you know. Unmarried presidents. Someone was talking about them the other day. I think there were two.
James
I was
Buchanan?
looking up stuff. Couldn't remember their names.
James Buchanan and Grover Cleveland.
Okay.
Cleveland married while in office.
Ah, thank you.
How did he find that time?
How do you date someone and you're the president?
Yeah.
You imagine going on Tinder?
Oh, their schedules are like stacked. You know, how the hell do you find time to date?
Well, you schedule it, obviously.
Do they even sleep? Those people. Darwin's.
Hey, Darwin. You might be the person to answer my idealist question.
Only if Darwin is interested in some ass raping.
Who isn't interested in ass raping?
He seems to really enjoy it. He keeps coming back for more.
Well, if he enjoys it, then it's not really rape, is it?
Well, that's the question.
So I heard you guys talking about Hillary. Seth, are you aware of the fact that, according to the State Department, Hillary sent and received emails on her private server that contained literally hundreds and hundreds of classified information, and in addition, there were a number of emails that contained some of the highest classification of intelligence from what is called the SAP program. Were you aware of that?
I'm not aware of anybody named Hillary.
Yeah. Were you aware that the State Department has acknowledged that her server contained that?
I'm not aware of anybody named Hillary.
Okay.
But what's interesting about that fact, Darwin? That's what I'd like to understand. Why would that be interesting?
So Seth, you don't want to answer the question?
No, I don't care for the rhetorical nature of calling her Hillary.
Okay, well, I'll vocalize it in a way that
you don't want to answer the question.
Actually call her by her name, then I don't want to have the conversation with you. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so I'll rephrase it for you. Are you aware that Hillary Clinton sent and received hundreds of emails, literally more than 1,000 emails, that contained not only classified information, but contained a great number of emails sent and received that contained some of the highest intelligence classification ratings that the United States government has under the acronym the SAP? Did you hear about that?
It's a very lengthy question. Are you going to allow me to elaborate on my answer?
I'm not stopping you.
Well, you did last time. You interrupted me when I was trying to.
Well, I asked you a question, so I'm done with the question.
So, yeah, I'm not aware of those specifics. I've heard things similar to that. I can just grant it.
Oh, CK, you're picking up train noise.
I can just grant it for the sake of argument. I'm not sure what is that supposed to sway me in the face of a possible Trump presidency to vote for somebody other than Hillary.
Okay, well, so you're not aware of this?
I don't know how it could have been clearer. I've heard things to that nature. I didn't hear it put specifically in that way. I can grant it to you for the sake of argument. Is that supposed to sway me to vote for somebody other than Hillary in the face of a Trump presidency?
Okay. Do you think that somebody who, with foresight and who actually chooses to send and receive some of the highest intelligence classification on a homebrew server something that is a cakewalk for foreign intelligence services to hack can be trusted in the Oval Office?
My question is actually more pertinent to that.
This is the most laughable discussion I've ever encountered. Darwin.
So did you need me to repeat the question, Seth?
No, I think my question to you that you refuse to answer, even acknowledge, answers that question pretty clearly. That yeah, absolutely, Hillary would be a godsend compared to a Trump or Cruz presidency.
Okay, so you think that she is a trustworthy individual when she's lying about the nature of the email situation?
I said nothing like that.
Okay, are you aware of the fact that even people on the Democratic side are acknowledging from a number of news sources, so this really isn't controversial, that she is actually lying about what transpired vis-a-vis her server?
I don't know where you're getting this. When you came in, the only thing I said about Hillary was damning. I don't like Hillary. I would not like to vote for Hillary. I'm a Bernie supporter, and voting for Hillary will leave a bad taste in my mouth. But in the face of a Cruz or Trump presidency, I think it would be the best possible choice.
Okay. Do you think that somebody who is repeatedly lying about the nature and the content of the email server, that even people on the Democratic side are acknowledging that she's lying through her teeth about it, do you think that's somebody who do you think should be in the Oval Office?
I thought he already answered.
But yeah, I've answered you. I don't want to vote for Hillary. I would not like Hillary to be the president. But in the face of other people possibly being president, I would rather her be president, and I would vote for her for that reason.
So would you like to repeat the question again, Darwin's, now that he's answered it twice? Would you like to run the question a third time so he can answer it a third time, Darwin's? Or how about a fourth and a fifth time?
Just for the record there, I was the one that was supporting Hillary.
Yeah, it's very weird that you'd come at me and attack me on Hillary on this, because before you came in, I did not say anything good about Hillary.
Well, what I don't understand...
Seth, did I attack you, Seth?
You seem to be attacking a position that I'm supporting Hillary. Now,
I asked you a question. Do you perceive it as an attack, Seth?
A position of supporting Hillary.
Did you perceive my question as an attack?
How many times? You're being very disingenuous here. I've made it very clear. It's an attack in the sense that you're attacking a position. It's not a personal attack. I don't think that you're a jerk for asking it, but it is an attack. Just like if I asked you, if I proposed that God doesn't exist to you and proposed you an argument, I'd be attacking your position that God exists.
So you perceive my question about Hillary as an attack?
Yeah, as a philosophical attack, yes.
Okay.
Could I briefly welcome CK together and briefly comment while I am rather far to the left of, say, Sanders, and my position might be represented by, frankly, one of the communist parties, or most closely, maybe socialist workers or something like that. I would still basically go for, well, either the lesser evil if I'm in a swing state, or since I'm not, just whatever kind of protest vote. So, go ahead.
Now, interestingly, Seth, I think the interesting question is that's sort of being left out here is that Darwin's would prefer that the person who was in office, if he received a commandment from God to murder the entire population of the United States, would go through with it. Because on Darwin's view, the good is determined by what God commands, right? And so God could suddenly decide, well, the right thing to do is to slaughter the entire U.S. population, right? So given a choice between any two presidents, right?
Jack.
Oh, he left.
Jack, how do you do that? How do you do that?
Okay, sorry. Oh, darn it. I was going to, well, maybe try a more plausible scenario where all those, like myself, would be executed.
Well, how was that?
Including myself. Darwin's, should I be executed and should the president sign a bill to it? There we go.
But isn't Hillary just like an old grandma? Like she's from a time that like she doesn't know how to work an iPad, and that's the reason like she screwed up.
Well, that's bullshit. I mean, that's bullshit. She
How
knows.
old is she?
I think she's only a couple years younger than Bernie Sanders, actually.
I think like late 60s or early 70s, something like that.
But there you go.
Yeah, but she knows technology. She had I mean, there was that classic picture with a meme going around where she's on a smartphone.
Yeah, she's 68.
Yeah.
She should be in a retirement home. Well, what's she doing there?
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Hey, Seth. Let me ask you. I'm a Bernie Sanders supporter also. Do you think he's gonna be able to pull it off?
I'm skeptical, but I hope so.
Like, I think Michigan was a good sign. Like, that was definitely surprising. It gave me more hope, basically. So if he could pull off like Ohio and things like that, I think he'd have a much better chance if he gets some of these Midwest states here soon.
I think I was in a position at my work recently where I had no extra time. I had maybe a day off a week, and I tried to spend that with my significant other, and I'd be working 14 hours a day, so I had no time. But now I'm back to my regular schedule. I have a couple of days off a week. I think I'm going to see what I can do to volunteer for the Sanders campaign out here in California. It's a very important state, and I think he could win it.
Oh, absolutely. It might come down to that state. It's like isn't it the last state to vote, California, in the primary?
Late state to vote, that's for sure. I'm not sure if it's the last.
Yeah, unfortunately, I live down here in Florida. We're going to be voting soon, and it's a tough state. I don't know if he's going to be able to pull it off, and it sucks because I think it's a winner-takes-all state for delegates. So someone's going to get a good amount of delegates here with this election down here. He is actually in town. He's only unfortunately, my kid's sick today, so I have to kind of stay in with my kid. But he's in town like 15, 20 minutes away from me doing a big event today. And I'm so mad I don't get to go check this out, man. He did perform well last night. He did pretty good against in the debate. I don't know if you get to catch it. But he did well last night. And Hillary, man, that channel was really hard on her last night. I was actually kind of impressed that they asked her tough questions.
Good.
But I think I'm with you, man. I think when you look at the alternative, like, I'm not a huge Hillary Clinton fan. She's not even like in my top 5 Democrats I'd want to run.
Oh yeah.
What are you gonna do? Like you gonna let Cruz or Donald Trump be president? Like, these guys are clowns.
It's a shame Darwin's didn't answer me. I really wanted to know if he thought that the alternative being Donald Trump was better. I mean, God damn it, that's fucking frightening.
He's probably a Trump supporter. No, he's probably a Cruz supporter. I could see him being like a Ted Cruz supporter, actually.
That's really frightening as well. Have you heard his father speak?
No.
Wow.
They are 7 Mountains Dominionists.
Yes, they're apocalyptic Christians. I mean, listen to his father speak. He speaks in churches. He speaks at little events, usually before his son's rallies, and he is downright just beyond Pat Robertson's scary apocalyptic.
Raphael and presumably Ted, if they're in sync, basically the two forms of the Dominionism, Reconstructionism, whatever it is, what is it? It's covenantal and something else. Do differ regarding persons like myself, and basically one says to use modern execution methods, the other says to go with literal stoning. Right.
And then there's Trump, who says, you know what we used to do to people like that back in the day, talking about, I think it was a black individual that they kicked out of the rally.
Trump is scary, man. And it amazes me. I guess I shouldn't say it amazes me how much following he has, but it's I don't know. It's, my biggest problem. I mean, besides all the rhetoric, the crazy shit the guy says, right? And he does say some very, very extreme stuff. But he has no actual plans. Like, he doesn't really have any kind of things laid out to what his strategy is. All I hear him say over and over again is, I'm going to get this done. I got smart people who are going to get this done. You know, we're going to build this wall. The wall is the only actual plan I've actually heard him say. And I'll get Mexico to pay for it, which is fucking hilarious.
He's got a plan to get rid of ISIS. He won't tell anybody. And you know what pains me is people like, I've got a lot of family members who support him. Oh, he actually says it like it is. I'm like, are you kidding me? He is the most slimy politician up there, except for possibly Cruz. Time and time again, he's caught just lying for just obviously so he doesn't have to lose support. When he pretended not to know who David Duke was, when he pretended not to know who the KKK was, when he pretended to be a Christian and said his favorite Bible verse was in 2 Corinthians, quote, 2 Corinthians.
I think John Kasich's probably the most moderate on that whole damn who's left on the Republican nomination ticket, but he doesn't even won a state. He's probably going to lose his own state, which is sad. That's the only guy I mean, I can't support a Republican at this point in my life, but that's the only guy at least somewhat reasonable, you know, can maybe be able to work with the other side.
He's the only guy that if he was elected, I wouldn't maybe throw up that night with the inauguration.
Not be so worried that the end of the world is coming now.
Yes. No, Rubio on the I wouldn't be that. I mean, Rubio is really radical too, but I wouldn't be that scared.
Yeah.
If Trump gets elected, I'd seriously be like thinking about building a shelter. Like, I mean, we laugh, but
it's true.
Can you imagine his interaction with other foreign leaders?
Like, part of me wants to think conspiracy theories wise and think that he's like really just trying to get the Democrats elected. Like, my initial thought, like when he started running, was like that was I mean, it's just, you know, obviously I don't have any evidence backing that up, but like I think at first it was 2 reasons he was running. I think one, to get the Democrats elected, see how crazy he could sound, and one for publicity, right? And then somewhere along the line, something happened where he was like, oh, wait a minute, I'm actually winning. People are liking me. And you can even see, like, the crazier the things, he kind of upped his game, right? He kept saying crazier and crazier things. And then it never backfired. It got him even more popular.
When he said, he started out by saying that he could shoot somebody in Times Square and get away with it?
No, that was the start. That was pretty far into it, actually. But that was bad.
Yeah, but that's once again up in the game. Like, I mean, the fact, could you imagine if Obama had said something like that? Good God, Fox News would have never stopped 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, would have played that clip over and over again.
Oh, they would have taken it to a whole level, you know, of conspiracy. They would have shown where the gun is, you know, that he planned to do it with.
Are you kidding me? There are a lot of Republicans out there that I don't consider to be crazy that honestly think that Obama might have done something to assassinate Scalia.
Oh yeah, I've heard that thing before. You know what I honestly think, though? Here's what I think is going to happen this election. Is I think the establishment of Republicans who hate Trump, they don't like him. They don't think they want him to be president. I think they're going to do either one of 3 things. I think one is they're going to broker the convention, and they're going to try to push Mitt Romney through. Because they're going to be like, well, he was the old nominee. Yeah. He's a moderate. Like, he's someone, I think he might get some Democratic votes or some people who don't like Hillary Clinton. He might be able to get them to vote. And he's a good debater to some degree, right? And then they still lose. Go ahead. What are you going to say?
What they can't do is they can't put a nominee up who's already lost to Trump. So it can't be Cruz and it can't be Rubio.
Exactly.
It would infuriate the Republican base. I mean, anything other than Trump right now would probably infuriate the Republican base. But I think Mitt Romney would be the least.
And I think they're almost willing to lose. I think they would rather lose this election and then go in 2016. The next election after this, than actually have Trump win it.
You know what would be the best reboot for the Republican Party? They nominate I can't think of all of a sudden. He was tortured and he's ran
McCain.
If they put McCain as the nomination, and he obviously wouldn't pick Sarah Palin as vice president again,
yeah.
it would be a slap on the wrist to the Tea Party saying, no, you fucked up. Ever since Sarah Palin, we've been losing more ground. We've been getting more radical. No, we're going back to moderate and compassionate conservatism. It would reboot the party. I think that's what they should do. I don't think that's what they're thinking, but I think that's the right move.
And I honestly, and the other thing, I mean, they could always try to just, I mean, they could throw the election a couple ways. I mean, because they could broker the convention, and then Trump's going to run as independent, and bam, they lose because they're going to shift just enough votes to where the Democrats will win, right? Or they can just convince somebody to run third party against Trump as the nominee. They can get like another establishment Republican, a McCain or Romney, and be like, hey, run third party, try to fight Trump. Boom, they still lose the election, right? Or they sit back and let Trump win and hope that Hillary beats him in the actual election. But I don't know, man. It's crazy.
That points to your first conclusion, Skylar, which I was in on you with. I feel like Bill Clinton and Donald Trump were known to be friends, and it's a fact that Trump called Bill Clinton before he announced that he was going to run, and got his blessing to do it. And they admitted to that much. So who knows what else those connivers are up to, or were up to. But I think you're right also that somewhere in that, the realization, Trump had the realization that, hey, I actually am walking on water or something, you know.
Yeah. You know, and well, think about this too. What was it say that wasn't it his quote that he even said? Wasn't it back in the 90s? He's like, if I was to run for president, I'd run as a Republican because those people will believe anything. Like, he literally said that. And most of his views.
In the 90s, he was still a Democrat.
That really amazes me, right? So we still like, he's against Obamacare, but he's like literally arguing for universal health care, which you notice has very little been talked about at the actual Republican
Obamacare
debates.
because he realizes that running as a Republican, he can't be for Obamacare.
Correct. Yeah, I agree. But like that, but his stance in general is universal health care, and I think he wants to. There's a couple tax things where Republicans don't agree with him either. I think he wants to raise certain taxes on stocks and things like that, but I'm not absolutely sure, to be honest with you.
He claims he wants to close corporate tax loopholes, but every Republican does that.
Yeah, no one actually does it. Do you think? You know what I'm wondering now? What I do think, what will be nice. So if Bernie keeps doing as well as he's doing, and he keeps winning states, right? Hillary's going to be forced to take him as the VP. Like, there's, huh?
You think so?
Yeah, I think, dude, if he keeps winning, because think about it, like, all those young voters, right? Because the people who want to vote for Hillary would already be voting for Hillary, right? She just puts a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. People just don't like her, right? And I think what's going to happen is if he's this popular and he's energizing, look at all the money this dude's raised from the youth vote. Why blow that? Right? The only other person I could think that would be a better choice than Bernie Sanders would be Elizabeth Warren. And that's if she wants to go balls to the wall and put like Clinton Warren.
Well, it won't be Elizabeth Warren. I can pretty much guarantee you that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, who would Hillary take, right? We're going to take this dude from Maryland, this boring-ass guy who did terrible, O'Malley?
She's not going to choose a woman.
Yeah.
She's smarter than that. She's realized that there's too many sexists who are already going to be. I mean, there's already too many people who are, oh my God, a woman president. I don't know. What if she gets her period?
God, you know what would be a murderous move if it was even possible? Would be if she were able to tap Al Gore, patch the old Clinton Gore rift.
Oh wow.
Fucking get the youth vote back. All those people that were so pissed about him getting robbed in 2004 or whatever it was.
That would be interesting. A Clinton Gore election.
What year is it?
It's. Yeah, I mean, that's not within the realm of impossibility. Like, that's definitely
Sarah Silverman last night, Skylar, or the other night. On the Bill Maher show, really had a good assessment of what it was like to be a Clinton fan in 2008, and compared to wanting Bernie Sanders now. And it was really cool. Her analogy was like imagine you watch pro baseball and you knew that everybody's on steroids and stuff, so Hillary Clinton was, just a great player like everybody else, but then along came Bernie Sanders, and he didn't take steroids, and he was still hitting balls out of the park, What are you going to do? And that's kind of the dilemma that a lot of Democrats are in. But I don't see Hillary appealing to the youth vote.
She's got to capture, and I'm afraid. I mean, and this kind of hurts the Democratic Party towards like if it's a Trump election, because and it's weird. I don't understand it why there's a bunch of Bernie supporters saying, "Well, I'll vote for Trump if I don't vote for Bernie." I guess it's just the anti-establishment thing, but it's just so. I mean, Phil, I mean, politically, it's just completely different ideologies, and that's what I don't. They don't understand enough to know why you can't do that. It's just not a good choice to go to Trump over Sanders or over Clinton.
It's a nuclear option, kind of,
Yeah.
Like upsetting the chess table or whatever.
I'd rather them just not vote. Just don't vote. Don't vote for Trump. Go vote. And if you're conservative, like why not vote? Go vote Libertarian, man. Go vote for Gary Johnson. He's a decent guy.
Penn Jillette had a really, really good answer too. I mean, Penn Jillette loves Bernie Sanders, apparently.
Yeah.
He loves his policies, but his personality and his persona and his, Bernie Sanders, but not his policies. He has said that if it comes down to a Trump or Hillary election, he will vote for Hillary. But he does have a pretty good answer to the question, do you feel the burn? And that was, no, but feel my Johnson.
Feel my Johnson. I'm kind of mad now because I used to register Republican to go, because most of the time the Democrats would just nominate the person I'm gonna end up voting for anyways, right? I voted for Ron Paul a couple of years ago, and I was registered Republican to try to vote for the Republican that I thought was at least a better candidate than any other ones to run against the Democrat. And I didn't get my registration changed in time here for the election. So now I'm stuck with a fucking Republican registration. So I got to vote for one of these. I guess I'm going to go vote for Kasich, I guess, out of the three. But it's terrible. I don't even know if I will vote in the primary. It's kind of pointless down here because of this.
Well, you should vote for whoever has whoever is more likely to win over Trump, because what we need to do now is make sure that Trump doesn't have enough delegates to lock up the nomination before the convention, because then they can't go to the convention.
Hey Seth, can he choose his running mate before the or I don't know, it's traditionally it's not done, but before the convention?
I don't know of any rule that says that he can't. I don't know if it's ever been done, but I don't see why he couldn't.
Who do you think his nominee is going to be if it's Trump? You think Christie? You think he'll be so bold? You think that's why this guy switched over?
I don't know. I don't think Christie has enough support. It could be Christie.
Maybe Cruz. Maybe he just goes Trump Cruz. But they don't.
Knowing Trump, it could be Jesse the Body Ventura.
He's not.
Oh, I hope not. I mean, I like Jesse Ventura, but I hope that's not.
I actually do like him, but he's so wackadoodle on some things that it. But just to listen to, he has really good plain speak.
Yeah.
That has a certain appeal, and he does have gubernatorial experience. So
I don't know how smart Trump is. It's really hard to tell if he's playing three-dimensional chess or if he's a fucking moron who's just tripping, just tripping into success. But if he's smart, he'll choose a woman.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know what's funny? You know who would be the fucking Republican nominee right now, and possibly the Republican president if he could run? And that would be Arnold Schwarzenegger, if he was not ineligible, and maybe with this little affair that he had. But that dude would be president right now, or at least the nominee in 2016.
God, married to a Kennedy, no doubt.
Yeah.
That he had some fucking chops. You're right. He fucked that up.
It's a shame. Well, I mean, I guess he can't technically run because he was born in Austria, but dude, he would have been perfect. Like I might have even voted for that dude. I might have been like, all right, I could see, like he's a moderate. Like when I heard there was this thing that he used to do, and it was the most interesting thing in California. So one of the things to try to get everybody together, because in this, in the House, Senate, and their and their legislation in the state, these people in office never hung out with each other. Like they would go to work and they hung out with their own parties, so it caused this division. So it's just like if you only hang out with your own friends, these are the only kind of people this is the kind of personality you're going to have. So what he started doing was basically having these big cigar parties at the, I don't know what you'd call it, like the house he lived in, the governor's home in California. And he would bring all the different, Senate and House members there in California, bring them together and give them like brandy and cigar and make them basically mingle with each other and get to know each other so they can get shit done, basically. And that's fucking brilliant.
God, and they were really hateful. I mean, the level of vitriol with California between parties was horrible at one time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were like two gangs at war at one time.
Who's the governor now? Jerry Brown? Is who's the governor of California right now?
I have to go look.
Governor Moonbeam. Yeah.
How is he,
Wow.
Seth? Is he a decent governor?
You know, some of his policies. I can't remember. I heard something. I don't pay attention to it that much, but I remember he was thinking about a policy sometime late last year that I didn't like. I can't remember what it is. But he's one of the longest serving governors in, I think, U.S. history. So he can't be doing too bad.
Yeah, he was governor. Wasn't he governor in the 70s or?
Yeah. Yeah, he was governor for a very long time, and then he retired, and then he's governor again. It's kind of a strange thing.
Did you guys legalize weed yet in California?
Nope.
This election, they vote on it. 2016.
But it's somewhat legal. It's decriminalized. You get a ticket for having like less than an ounce, I think, and unless you have a weed card, a prescription basically for marijuana, then you can carry up to an ounce, I think.
Well,
you know,
what's his name? They're going to pass it. You guys will pass it this year, complete legalization. You guys, Nevada's going to vote on it. I think there's a couple others. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted you, man.
No, keep going. I'm listening.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, and once that happens this year, once California legalizes it, it's game over for this business of it being illegal countrywide. That economy in California, being one of the largest economies in the world, I mean, it's more than I think most countries in the world. The economy of California.
It is.
It's gonna, and then Nevada with that. I mean, look, two of the big vacation spots, right?
California has a better economy than most countries.
Yeah, exactly. And
it's like fifth in the world or something. So yeah. Top 10 or some crazy deal like that.
They're not going to be able to hold back the laws on it anymore. It's going to be game over. It's going to start spreading. And then with Nevada, you'll have the whole West Coast, Alaska. Nevada is going to pass it this year. I think Maine, there's another state in the Northeast that actually has it legalized, I think. But you can't hold it back much longer.
This Jesse the Body Ventura, I don't know why I call him that. I just remember him when I think he used to wrestle in Portland. He's for all drug legalization.
For all drug legalization?
Yeah. I don't think Trump would pick him, but
here's my issue, right? I don't think drug possession should be necessarily illegal. But I don't think all drugs should be able to be legally sold in stores, basically, like at a retail. Like I don't want a retail shop to be able to sell crystal meth or crack cocaine or something like that, or just random whatever kind of chemical engineered drugs we have.
I do.
I think legalizing crack cocaine and completely fully, as well as prostitution, are very critical.
Yeah, I think legalizing crack cocaine where you can buy it at retail stores. Well, I don't think it'll make more people do crack cocaine. I think it'll make crack cocaine safe. And
I'm with you, Seth.
Taking the stigma out.
Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not for punishing addicts by any means. Like, I'm not saying punish the addicts for it or anything like that. I don't know. It just seems like
no, Skylar,
it causes more problems than it would. I don't know.
You know, I don't think you're for not thinking that crack cocaine should be sold in the corner store.
Yeah.
I get it. I do. I just think.
I think crack cocaine should be sold in the corner store.
Right. Exactly. I disagree with him, but I understand his position. I don't think it's that crazy to not want that to happen. But I think about it, it makes sense to allow that kind of thing to happen because it can be regulated and made safe.
Sure, and you stop a lot of crime with it in a sense too. You stop a lot of the.
Yeah, we have that Portuguese model now, and it's fucking bulletproof. What they've done in the last 10 years.
And it brought them all the. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you should only be able to get it through game shows.
It's the only way to win the war on drugs. I don't know about selling it in the corner store, you know, where kids could shoplift it and stuff necessarily, but even then, it's proven that that Seth, and I'm using your name freely because I've watched a lot of these and I've met you a time or two, but it's proven that if you remove some of the what do you call it, evil moral attributes of the drug and start to look at it as something that, you know, people are going to be addicts. It's going to be about 5% of the population. If you want to really stretch it, 10%, that they're going to become addicted to something, no matter what. And our chances are. And alcohol is the most fucking destructive fucking drug you can, you know, imaginable in the hands of an alcoholic. So we're already there. We've got no moral.
Alcohol is really, really dangerous, and it's more dangerous than people realize for a lot of reasons. Number one, it is the drug that people overdose on the most and most regularly, and to get the recommended dose of alcohol is much more closer to the overdose limit than almost any other drug, any other recreational drug.
A lot of the others are only really dangerous by dint of like impurities or whatever the street things cut things with. And what is it also? I think the stuff they cut it with, and the administration methods. You know, like they have a bad administration method for methamphetamine, so it screws up the teeth.
STDs and stuff.
No, I was saying the methamphetamine administration with the whatever pipes you use or something like that. You know, it screws up your teeth.
Oh.
If you've had a hangover, you basically either overdosed or came close to overdosing on alcohol. The recreational dose is very close to the overdose.
Wow. You know what I hate?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'll say it real quick. You know what I hate is like, so like when you watch movies, TV shows, and everything, like, everyone's like, whenever they want to unwind or they want to have fun, it's always like, we just go right to alcohol. Like, oh, it's no big deal. We're just going to have a beer. We're going to have a drink. But, like, God forbid you show someone, like, smoking a joint or do something like that on a TV show. And it's like, oh, you're using drugs. Like, it's so weird in our society how we portray these things. Anyways, go ahead, though. You were going to say something.
Does anybody know how it happened? Why alcohol? I guess because alcohol was first or something.
What, the making it illegal, marijuana?
I think you could probably point to the distributorships that owned it.
I think the cotton industry wanted it to be illegal.
There's a bunch of different theories. One of them is racial. The idea is that a lot of black jazz musicians, especially in the 1920s, smoked reefer and
reefer.
Yeah, reefer. And that's what it was called back then. I'm just kind of staying with the times. And so it was made. It was stigmatized because it was a black drug, just like a lot like crack cocaine, is now. And it wasn't even technically illegal back then. It was technically legal. You would have, if you grow it, you'd have to get it taxed up until I think 1969. But to get it taxed, you had to bring it to a facility. I can't remember the exact government building or facility. But in the meantime, since you had it and it wasn't taxed, you can get in trouble for having it. So the Congress finally decided in 1969 to do something about it. They did, and they made it illegal.
But they also then the DEA labels it as having no medicinal fucking no redemptive value. So in 1969, we're in 1969 or maybe 1970 now in terms of research with what we can do with cannabis medicinally. We're so behind the curve. Not that we won't catch up quickly, but
yeah, and I was thinking more why alcohol is the drug of choice for humanity.
It's been probably been around the longest, right? I would imagine. Like, I know opium and stuff's been around quite a long time.
Well, they probably decided, well, Jesus drank wine, but he didn't smoke pot. We don't think, right?
It'd be way cooler if he did. Yeah, I would think just because of the history of alcohol, it's just been around so long. You know, it was interesting. I didn't know this till a couple of years ago that the you know, when they put, you know, they banned alcohol in the Constitution, made an amendment for it, that it was the only time within our U.S. history that every state ratified that, like in that manner, to where every state could hold a vote on it and agree that we want to ban alcohol, and every state did it. Every state, the only time, from what I understand of it, yeah.
Yeah, I think the stigma might be the fact that alcohol is a social lubricant and weed isn't. Weed isn't as much as a social lubricant. I don't think people smoke weed. You smoke weed and have really deep conversation with your friends. I don't think you really have that deep conversation with strangers. Alcohol, it's a little bit of liquid courage. You drink some alcohol and suddenly you can approach that girl. You can let down your guard and have a political conversation with your peers.
It's true. And you get labeled too. I mean, there's a lot of labels to it too. Like people, you smoke a joint, people like look at you like you're weird. Like they go, well, not necessarily so much today, but there was a time where, you know, you told someone you smoked, it was like a thing. Like, oh, you're a pothead or you're a stoner. But you would never call someone just an alcoholic if they have a beer every once in a while. You know.
Yeah. Also, I think maybe there's something to do with when you drink with someone. There's a kind of you know, a bonding between drinkers.
I was thinking that it might have been the money. The money, you know, who had the vested interest in alcohol? When you think that Kennedy was a bootlegger and then legitimized, and all, I wonder if the money had a big. And then with the marijuana, I'm surprised that Seth didn't bring up the William Randolph Hearst thing with him having, you know, he was not only a newspaper, you know, magnate, but he actually owned the tracts of forests, the whole. He was bottom up invested in newsprint, in the actual paper itself, and distributed that to a lot of other, you know, nationwide. And you know, marijuana at that time was a fiber that easily rivaled wood pulp in manufacturing paper, and was a lot more economical and efficient to grow. To, you know, you can make a better grade of paper with it, everything. So I don't know if anybody's ever heard that, or if that's just urban legend kind of a thing, with William Randolph Hearst really fighting legalization of marijuana, even for industrial purposes or whatever you call it, agricultural, industrial purposes.
I don't know much detail about it, but I've definitely heard that. I've heard that a lot of it with how cheap hemp is to make, like for material like paper and all these things. That it was a. I mean, it's so easy to grow. It's one of the easiest, from what I understand, crops to grow out there. It's interesting. I mean, the cotton. I mean, cotton was such a big industry. It's hard to think about that. I mean, but back then, I mean, that was a major industry. It had so much money, I would imagine.
And cotton, yeah.
You know,
cotton, right?
You know, what was the other thing I heard about alcohol back in? Apparently, too, before they amend the Constitution to make it illegal, to ban it. Apparently, we had a really serious alcohol problem in this country too, though. It's what I hear. Like it was like women were really fed up with it. Because I think that was a big part of the women was really pushing it. Like, you know, these men were getting so shit-faced drunk and beating them and doing all this other kind of stuff. And
you're right.
I don't know though. Yeah.
Ever since they learned to distill alcohol, once it became distilled, it became a social burden. So it's odd how it survived this manner of thinking that, you know, it has.
I mean, you know what blows my mind is, like, I live in Florida here, and this state is so anti-marijuana. Like they're so, like, they don't even, unfortunately we tried to vote on medical marijuana, and we have to have 60% in order to pass it as an amendment to our Constitution. We had like 58% or something. It passed majority-wise, but it needs 60. But this state would make so much money if they just let it legalize. We have the weather, we have the climate. Oh my God, we have the place we could grow it. I mean, it's just, we have tons of country out here where they can do it. We could export it to pretty much so many places. We already have tourism is through the roof down here. Like, people would come down here. That's why Nevada is going to do well, man. Nevada, when they legalize it, they're going to make a fortune. is it's going to be like a capital spot to go and do that now, you know? If Colorado, I mean, Colorado's like pretty much the only, I mean, you can go to Oregon and Washington too, but I heard it's much more difficult. It's not difficult, but I heard it's much more expensive to get stuff like that there. But like if you had a state that was more mainstream like California or Florida, I mean, those are big tourist spots.
Oh man, that's what I'm excited about, because California, the quality of weed from like Humboldt County and stuff, yo, when that shit hits the market, it's gonna be crazy cool.
Yeah,
but I wonder how I think they're trying to regulate that. I was talking to somebody in California the other day. In Oregon, I have to purchase it for health reasons for a family member, and it's easy enough to purchase. You don't need, you have to give them your license, your driver's license. You know, they have to have your ID on file to make sure that you don't buy more than, what is it, 7 grams a day or something. It's less. I think it's less expensive than weed was on the street by far, and it's arguably probably better stuff by and large. But I wonder if like Oregon is going to try to localize it and feed, you know, their own marijuana agricultural system, and Washington's going to have their own greenhouse growers, Colorado, or if they're going to allow interstate commerce on that. That's what I'm wondering.
I wonder if that's going to have to be done something federally first before they can do interstate commerce. Because I mean, you got to think right now, there was a situation, I think this may have recently changed, but you couldn't even, like a lot of those businesses can't even use a federal bank, basically. They can't use banks for their income. Because there's different laws and things like that. I think Obama may have fixed that, but I'm not sure, and that's tricky. I mean, you have to pay cash when you go into the stores. You can't use your card or anything to do these transactions. I mean, shit, the DEA was still sending agents into California to break up these medical facilities. Even though
DEA, they're an entity. They want to, you know, this is a fucking big, enormous hit for them. So they're going to turn now on something else, probably prescription drugs, and make a big, huge, fucking crazy deal out of that, and start harassing doctors
this is part of the. So this is what caused. Like a lot of people don't know this, but this is what caused a lot of our militarization of our police force here in this country, is because it was either under Reagan, it might have been under Clinton actually. They basically did this program to where the more drugs you bust as a police force, now they can't give you commission, they can't like just give the people more money, right? Because it's due to some kind of legality. But what they can do is give you more equipment. You can fund equipment and training for your police officers. So police forces started focusing on drugs. And you ever wonder why all these police forces now have like tanks and shit like that, and fucking they look more like military than they do actually, you know, actual police officers.
Boy, I sure don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, at one point in this history, and there was a reason why we have a separate police force in the military. You know, we don't want military type people walking around our streets. And I honestly think, I mean, there's a lot of problems that go along with that. I mean, the militarization of the police force. I think this is what hurt a lot of the low-income communities. I think this is why there's a disproportionate amount of African Americans in prison. Because when you have a low-income community and they can't get jobs and they can't get fair treatment, the only way they can make money is by a lot of times going into illegal things, under trade, which is like drugs and things like that. Well, those people also can't afford fucking lawyers. They can't, like, you know, because think about it, like someone like me, a middle-class white guy, right? I get busted with a drug charge, something minor. Let's just say I got caught with like an ounce of marijuana or something like that. I can fucking lawyer up, go to court, and it's going to cost them more money than it's going to make them, basically. Now, if they go into a poor black community where there's not a lot of money, they can go arrest people freely, put them in jail. They get the funding from the government for more training, more police force, things like that. It causes the private prison systems that we have, which are making money off of more prisoners.
Can it be more fucked up?
Them. It's so fucked up. I mean, there's reasons why we can't have certain things can't be private. This is why I'm really liberal on things. You can't. This is why you can't have. This is why you can't have a. It'd be like having a private judges. Like the more people you send to jail, the more commission you make. Or if you paid police officers commission for the more people they arrest. Well, it's going to cause unethical things because they're going to want to make more money. Same thing with private prisons. And
it's already proven to with that judge in Pennsylvania that was sending juvenile delinquents to a holding.
God, yeah.
Wow.
The worst. I mean, children. You're fucking sending children to jail, like for small things, like things that were not even, and now you're setting them up for failure. Because even if it doesn't stay on your record, right? That's the other part. That's the other dirty part of this. Is like now people who have stuff on their record can't get jobs, and now what are they even going to do? Now they're going to have to go on unemployment. They're going to go on government programs, which I'm not against, but like you're forcing them into something that, if you're conservative, you're arguing against. It's a fucking clusterfuck. It's a clusterfuck of profit that just is a vicious circle that doesn't. It only helps a few people that work in those industries, basically. Man, I could rant about that.
Yeah, but when you take, you take the prison industry, and they have a fucking giant and powerful union. All those prison employees. The police have a huge union. So there's also some they've got really strong collective bargaining, which I'm absolutely for. On the one hand, but it's if you take away the burden of policing marijuana, these fuckers they're not gonna reduce their workforce. They're gonna find some other culprit.
You want to hear something interesting, and you wait till this happens, and this is really going to fuck up the police force in this country, is wait till the self-driving cars become a thing, to where that's all there is self-driving cars. Because think about most of the stops that happen, how they arrest people, is through vehicle interactions, right? Through tickets, speeding tickets, stopping cars to be able to find drugs and find criminals. Broken taillights, right?
Whatever reason, or being black.
Exactly. When you have an automated car that can't break the law because it's programmed that way, you can't pull them over. There's no more ticket. There's no more revenue. Imagine spots you're not like. Okay, say you try to park in a handicapped spot and your car knows you're not handicapped. It won't allow you to, right? Or it won't allow you to speed. It won't allow you to do those things. All that income that is now coming into local counties and cities and stuff because of that, and going to the police will be stopped.
There are towns I know of that exist, and largely because they're speed traps. It's a huge source of revenue.
Now think about it. I would put money on, wait in the next couple of years when it becomes prevalent, when Google and Apple and these companies start launching their self-driving cars, you're going to see those industries try to fight it. And they're going to put money into trying to do some kind of regulation for something, whatever the fucking excuse they come up with. They'll be like, they're not safe. Or they'll make commercials like, can you really trust a driving car or self-driving car or something like that. But,
or anytime anytime there's an anomaly and something goes wrong, they're gonna bitch about it, and make it really focus on any of the pitfalls and stuff.
Oh,
yeah, another thing Nadi was talking about was the legalization of prostitution, and I wonder about that because when you think about society and the norms and stuff, that so often dating. I don't want to sound like I'm amoral, but I'm trying to be real pragmatic here. When you look at what a lot of the whole dating thing is and hitting the bars and stuff, it's so akin to prostitution. It may as well be. But what's interesting is now, Skylar, they're talking about these dolls or whatever, or robots. In the next 20 years, they say that they're going to have robots. I don't know if I want to say this out loud, but they're going to be so lifelike. They'll actually be better than sex as we know it for a lot of guys. And I wonder what's going to happen with our outlook. Prostitution's legal in some places in Nevada, and I wonder about that. I don't know if it's that big of a deal. How much police money? I mean, how much is actually spent on fighting prostitution? Whether it's a huge deal or not, I'm pretty ignorant about that part of it. But
I just want to get more. My issue with it is just making sure the girls are in a much safer condition, and it's not, they don't have pimps that are beating them, and they put themselves in danger and stuff in other ways. Basically, that would be. I think it's not really for the profit reason. I would think.
Humane reasons.
Yeah, I mean, there's humane reasons.
Same could be said for drug legalization too, because like Nadia said, people sharing needles, using pipes that are known to rot their teeth, using this, using that, buying concoctions where you don't even know that there's any reasonable expectation of quality. The materials that these fucking lab rats are using and stuff. mean, there's nothing there to
Give me
ensure
1
any
second,
kind of
guys.
safety.
I gotta go real quick. I'll be right back. I'm sorry, my son is sick. I gotta get him some water. I'll be right back. Sorry to interrupt you.
I'll talk to you soon, Skyler.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Hee-haw! Oh, that was a weak hee-haw. I think I think hee-haw is in the room, but I don't think he's got voice. What's up, Psycho?
What's going on, OG? How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I've actually got a chance here to talk. I'm not being interrupted and stuff, so it's kind of nice. But here in a few minutes, I'll have company again, and I'll have to fight for dear life for any internet time. How about you? How you doing? I heard you going at it with somebody last night. Oh, was it you going on? You were going on with Darwin's deity.
Oh, yeah, Darwin's deity. That motherfucker right there. That that intellectually dishonest son of a bitch. That motherfucker. He gets up on here, and he starts bringing up the whole topic of the describing the word atheism and what it actually means. Now, I gave my definition of how I see atheism and theism.
It was perfect.
And how they,
I heard it.
yeah. And I said it before he even got into trying to grill me about it. So he knew where I stood when he started asking his little questions. So he starts asking me these little random questions, pretty much the same thing, just rephrasing it over and over again. I'm pretty much staying,
Yeah,
pretty
I
much.
remember, and then you said under the umbrella for synonymous, which is fucking spot on, and then he starts trying to ridicule you on, and I was really disappointed with him. I thought he was better than that.
Yeah, I was sitting up here, I'm trying to respect them, because I know the Power Talk dudes go hard on them and everything else, but I never had a real interaction with him, so I figured I'd give him a fair shake and see where he's at with it. And he just started, and then he started asserting that I said synonymous, and because I never said synonymous because I didn't want to use that choice of words.
Oh, he didn't even use it to begin with, and then he's challenging you on the definition of synonymous, as if that was the issue. Wow.
Yeah, then he started wanting to play word
part.
games. Then he wanted to start playing word games on what synonymous means, and I just put it in the side chat right there. Now,
it was different.
Synonymous
The way that he did it was condescending and patronizing and almost seemed fucking racist at one point to me. That he was like,
and that's why I didn't even. For the longest time, I didn't even. Yeah, because actually I do know, but I know he probably got some Oxford definition of where it's a hard stance on synonymous. I just put in the side chat with how I view the word synonymous, and so when he said it, and I feel like everything falls under the same umbrella. I'm assuming that he was using that definition for the word synonymous. So I that's where I fucked up at. I shouldn't even have co-signed the word synonymous because I didn't use that word for a reason, and I should have just stuck to what I kept saying. And then he tried to hold me to that position when I never made that position to begin with. And then he just tried to harp on that one word and just kept going over and over and over again. And I'm like, okay, you're playing word games now. You're being intellectually dishonest. You knew exactly what I was saying.
So what's your opinion of him now having actually engaged with him personally?
Well, he's a troll. He's a troll.
I was mad listening. I was angry at what was going on in that. That it was nothing like a debate. It was childish. It was the schoolyard bully kind of thing.
He was sitting up here trying to play these little stupid word games and everything else, and I'm like, okay, I already know what he done. I done fell into this little stupid ass trap. I'm in the spider web now. He got his little Oxford definition of the word synonymous, and he's gonna hold me to his definition and everything else. So I'm like, okay.
But you didn't even introduce it in the conversation. He did, and you defined it adequately and well, and yet he kept hammering it. Do you know what the word even means, kind of a thing, suggesting that you were ignorant,
Yeah, like I was using stuff that I didn't know what I was saying or whatever. Like, he's a clown. He's a clown for that.
Yeah, you scored big points with me on that one, and he sunk back into his little pit that, he destroyed what little credibility I had been giving him with that. It just made it clear to me that he wasn't there to a Christian, I can see wanting to come in here to win souls over, but what he's doing is it doesn't seem like there's any good inspiration behind it when you start sinking to that level, which he does. And I've heard him make other comments like that, like Catholics, they're not our brothers. And I'm thinking, wow, there are a lot of Catholics who, might argue, about who's really Christian and not, and I wouldn't want to go there. Hey, how's it going, Hillbilly?
Agreed, though. The person that claims to be a Catholic and follows the catechism and listens to the Pope over the Bible and God, then those people are not our brothers.
They're not your brothers? The Catholics ain't your brothers?
Nope. Not if they follow the tradition, not if they follow the catechism, not if they follow the liturgy of the Pope. That means that what the Pope says is God's word. That ain't it. The Bible is God's word. God sent his one and only Son to die for our sins. We don't have any more revelation or canon to be added. That's why the catechism changes with each successive pope.
What denomination are you, Hillbilly?
I'm not. I'm just a Christian.
Okay.
I'm a Bible-believing Christian. I believe the Bible is true and correct, right from the very first verse where it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, if you can look at that and get that under your belt, everything else is child's play. Because that right there is giving us an idea of how God created and that he created right from the very first verse. It is a scientific equation almost. In the beginning, time, God, the energy behind the act, created the heavens and the earth. So you all got time, space, and matter, all created right there in the very first book, in the very first verse of Genesis.
It seems like there's a lot added to that. It feels like I read that story and it seems very allegorical.
Allegorical to what?
Well, it's a metaphor. It's a story. It's a story about. It's like it's a way of someone trying to explain deeper concepts.
Well, if it was written in a different fashion, I might agree with you. But it's not written that way. It's written as a historical narrative. And Jesus actually quotes it, that it was 6 days. In Exodus, in Deuteronomy, all these different places in Scripture where we are told these are 6 literal days and the 7th day is the Sabbath. There's plenty of information that will hold up that particular stance.
Well, it would seem like I mean, I feel like that's how you interpret Scripture. But like in Exodus, what's the Scripture that kind of states that it's a literal 6 days?
I can't remember the exact location, but it says, you do know that God, in the beginning, created all that was created in 6 days, and then he rested on the 7th, because they were arguing about the Sabbath. Now, see, again, if it's not literal 24-hour periods, what are they arguing about on one day on the Sabbath?
I could
got a problem.
I could say something in the allegory of the cave. Doesn't mean I take it literally.
Yeah, but what you say doesn't make any sense, Hal.
Well, I mean, here's the thing: is the problem is like at some point someone so this ancient Hebrew scripture of Genesis, right?
Yep.
As it's gone through time by word of mouth, from what I understand of the ancient Hebrews, this was a tradition to pass this on by mouth, right? And eventually, some kind of interpretation of this developed, and then this interpretation of this story just continued, right? So hold on.
Hang on a second. You can believe that, and you can go on a whole diatribe about how this could have happened, that could have happened, this. But that's not the case, because in the Jewish culture, they highly prized the transmission of the Torah, the Tanakh, and the books of the law from one generation to the other. Do you know that they would even count the syllables? And if you didn't get the syllables right, they made you go back and study it again.
The Torah was highly fluid until it was canonized.
Well, also in Jewish culture, they also told a lot of parables. They also told a lot of allegories and parables in Jewish culture also. You know what? Can I say something that drives me crazy? Is like, What is it with Christians and always constantly interrupting people? Like every person I seem to talk to lately, it's like you'll start to say something and they interrupt you in the middle of what you're saying.
It's the Holy Spirit.
Who said that?
The stories were fluid. Like Isaiah, the book of Isaiah, for example, has at least 3 authors.
Yes. Even when you read like the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, when you're reading that story, it kind of goes back and forth, like talking as if there's three different people telling the story within the story. I mean, there's a lot to this. I mean, just basically claiming, no, this is how it is, doesn't actually make it how it is. Like, this is what this story meant. I mean, it's so, I mean, you can look at this story. You have a talking serpent. We have a tree of knowledge. We have a tree of life and death. Oh, no, sorry, tree of knowledge and a tree of good and evil, if I'm correct. All these things scream allegory. This is the way stories were told. You have a garden where God made people from the dirt. Basically, there's no reason from reading that story to think that this is literal.
Well, there's 2 different creation accounts, right? In Genesis 1,
sure.
For example, God creates man and woman in his image. In Genesis 2, he only creates man in his image.
Yes, that's true. Well, one, at least, no, you're right on that.
That would be wrong again. How? Because Genesis chapter 1 is all about all the days of creation, 1 through 7. Genesis 2 is focusing specifically on on the 6th day of creation. So they're not 2 opposing stories. One complements the other. We're getting more information about day 6 in Genesis chapter 2.
I pointed out how they're 2 different stories and you didn't address it.
They're not 2 different stories.
Yes, it is.
Can I ask this, Christian Hillbilly? Before eating from the tree of knowledge, they were sinless.
Wait a minute! Whoa! So you're starting off wrong right there. That's not what it's called.
Well, knowledge of good and evil. Am I sorry?
The knowledge of good and evil.
I'm sorry. I just shortened it a little bit. Just give me a little charity. Just give me a little charity if you kind of understand what I'm saying. You can correct me if it's a major thing. Right?
That was a major thing.
Okay. All right. So they were sinless, correct?
At that point.
Yeah. Was it part of God's plan for them to fall?
No.
No. Okay. Was the serpent in that story Satan?
Yes.
Okay. Why did God leave his children who were sinless with a being who didn't have their best interest at heart?
Well, he didn't leave them with Satan as to Satan taking like babysitting. No, he wanted us to choose him of our own free will. And see, if you can't exercise that free will to say, no, thank you, God, you can't exercise the free will to say, yes, I will, God.
I don't understand how you need Satan for that, because they could still choose to accept God on their own free will without there being a being that tempts them.
God had it in his plan to make sure that we knew that there is good and evil. The fact that God allowed it to happen, I don't know exactly all the ins and outs about that. I can tell you one thing, though, that it does show us God's love to give us the free will so we can openly choose him or openly walk away from him.
Well, what was evil without sin? How would you define evil without sin?
I'm sorry?
You said that it was to be able to define good and evil. All right? And if there was no sin yet, how do you define evil?
Going against God's law, going against God's word. I mean, if you look at what is said, when God is walking with them in the garden, he tells them specifically, of any of the trees in the garden you can eat, they're yours. It's all, everything, have at it. But of this tree, you shall not eat of it. Now, see, we've got one rule. We've got one law. That's it. And we can't even handle that.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. I don't understand. There's no sin. There is no evil. So God, hold on. Hillbilly, I'm responding. I'm not interrupting.
There is no sin, but there is evil.
Christian, can you not interrupt me? Why are you being rude and interrupting what I'm saying? I let you speak, and then I respond after you speak. So show me the same courtesy, please.
I'm going to tell you something real quick. There is sin. Excuse me, there is not sin, but there is evil. Now you can speak.
Did Christian Hillbilly just mute me?
Yep.
Wow, you are rude, man.
I'm trying to get you to see. You're going down this tirade with bad information. There is evil, but there is not sin yet.
Why did God put the snake in the garden?
He wasn't
Why
able to
would he
answer
introduce evil into a world? Why would a entirely good and loving God?
We did.
No, he did. No, he introduced evil.
Adam didn't make the snake.
He
Eve didn't make the
us.
snake.
But we are the ones that did evil. We are the ones that committed sin.
No, the snake beguiled the woman Eve.
Not at all.
What was the snake doing there?
What was the reason God cursed the earth?
Well, what's your interpretation of why he cursed the earth? Is what you're asking?
No, it's very plain and simple.
Well, no, you tell us your interpretation.
I don't believe he
We don't have
cursed
the
the earth.
same belief. Yeah, we don't have the same belief, dude.
I believe
you
he
tell
gave
us how you interpret it.
man the ability to understand that what death is and a few things like that, and that might be loosely translated to evil. Death is certainly translated to evil in a lot of Christian thought, but I don't understand why the snake was there to begin with. And if what you're doing explains that, Jim, I'm listening. Otherwise, I might have to mute you.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
He's not. You're not rude like he is to mute somebody.
No, I like Jim. I like him. Even
I would like Jim too if he
with
just
the
didn't mute
warts
me.
and all.
Just disrespectful. Yeah.
I know he was, and he should
Yeah.
apologize. I wish
Yeah.
he would, because that was untoward behavior.
I mean, here's the thing, Christian. Like, if you want me to show the same respect to you that you're showing to me, I can. Right? I let you speak, and when you were finished, I responded. And then if you disagree with something I say, then you can respond and actually say what you want to say. So when it comes to the Garden of Eden, what you're actually talking about here, you're saying it was evil to disobey God, yet it doesn't say that in the Scripture. It doesn't say that in Genesis, that it was evil for them to disobey God. This is the stuff you're adding to the interpretation. You're saying that you have no reason to why Satan was there. You can't explain it. You have no good reason to why there's even a tree, as if we need a tree of knowledge in order for them to have free will. All you have to do is to be able to have free will is to be able to have choice. And that choice comes down to being able to accept and love God. When you're saying disobedience to God is evil, I would just like the scripture where that states that in Genesis.
Once again, if you're given every good thing from God, and God tells you you can have it, it's all yours except for this one tree. And if you eat from it on that day, you will surely die. And that is what that is. That is, sin equals death.
Yeah,
Sin
I agree with that
blood.
part, the death part. I think it was more likely death, because weren't Adam and Eve in the original state, weren't they given perpetual life, provided they obeyed God or something?
The text doesn't say that.
Oh, you know what? I was taught that as a kid.
No, after Adam and Eve eat of the tree of
Okay.
Good and evil, it says, "Behold, they have become as us, knowing good and evil. Let us not let them eat from the tree of life, lest also they live forever."
Yeah, because there was two different trees. That's correct. That's actually right. Yeah, because they ate the tree of knowledge. So that
Good and evil, the knowledge of good and evil.
Yep, I think
Not
that's
just
obvious.
knowledge, it's a specific knowledge.
Yeah, I think when we're just having communication, I think we all know what I'm referring to when I say the tree of knowledge. It's just a shorter way of saying it.
I do, and then I don't, Skylar. What is this about two trees?
Watch it on recording. Would you want them to go off with wrong information? I know I sure wouldn't.
Well, the thing is,
every chance I get, I'm going to tell you where you're wrong.
Well, the problem is we just explained it less than 1 minute ago, and unless somebody just jumped in a minute later and doesn't understand it, and I would highly doubt people who actually watch this channel doesn't, whatever. Okay,
Well,
so
how
you're
hard
gonna
is it
say
to say it correctly?
Well, I just think it's silly that every time you try to correct me on it.
The knowledge of good and evil. How hard is that to say correctly?
I don't know. I don't know how hard it is.
All that matters is you know what he means. You're just being asinine.
Yeah, that's the point. It's being charitable.
That discussion may be looked at later by others because it is being recorded. So why don't we say it correctly? It is not just knowledge. It is the knowledge of good and evil.
What was the other tree, or was there a
Tree of
I
life.
didn't know about two trees. What's that all about?
There's the tree of life, and there's a tree of knowledge of good and evil. So there's two trees to it. And once again, he's not, Christian Hillbilly's not actually explaining why God had to put all these extra things in here. He's just saying, well, this is, even if you don't need Satan in that category, you don't need Satan to tempt anybody in order for them to have a choice on whether they're going to eat from the tree of knowledge and good and evil.
Okay,
that
so
is an extra.
You don't like God's methods? Is that what you're saying?
I'm just wondering why he would do that. It seems counterproductive.
Why don't you
to
ask
his
him? I
purpose.
don't know.
Okay, well then you don't know. That's fair. I wish you would have said that in the first
I know what the word says. I know what he did do. I'm not going to second guess God, the creator of the universe. I'm not going to try and second guess somebody who is omnipotent, omnipresent. I'm not going to try and second guess him. He did it the best way possible. I know that for a fact, because if he had done it any other way, we wouldn't have the ability to freely walk away from him or freely embrace him. That's what it was all about.
Why is that the case? Why is that the case? Why would we not have the ability to walk away from him without Satan being in the garden?
Because you've got to have free will, my friend.
You still could have free will. You still have the ability to make choices without Satan being in the garden. Are you saying Adam and Eve couldn't make choices without Satan?
The reason, if you got man and woman sitting there, and all they know is each other, all they know is God and each other and what's in the garden, wait a minute.
Yep.
Now you've got a third party comes in and tries to question the authenticity and the love of God. So that's why he's there. So now they put a question. Because you know what the biggest lie ever told, the one that makes everybody think, well, maybe not, I don't know, is that really what God says? Because that's why it's so important. You want to say the tree of evil? It's not. Or the tree of knowledge? It's not.
Tree of knowledge of good and evil? Is that what you mean? The tree of knowledge of good and evil?
Because again, we need to show that this is not just something that was flippantly put together by the creator of the universe. Oh, I think I'll do this today. No.
Well, I mean, it's a pretty half-assed job in that story. I mean, it's the results are awful. I mean, if you answer this question, did he know
what we got, not what?
Okay, well, here we go. Did he know that they were going to fall?
Yes, he did.
Okay, so he made a plan to where human beings would fall.
No, he made a plan where human
beings. He did something that wasn't part of his plan.
Either obey and keep the truth with him and keep the fellowship with him, or disobey and go to hell.
You just said he knew that they were going to fall.
Yes.
So he can do something that's against his own plan.
No, he gave the humans, Adam and Eve, the ability to make a free will choice. Just because he knows the outcome does not negate his ability to allow the choice.
So when he's creating this scenario, when he's creating the setting of the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, all these things that are coming into place, he knew when he was creating this setup that they would fall, and he did it anyways.
Yep. Because
okay, so it was part of his plan then.
Have a relationship with him on a free basis, on a will. We're going to use our free will to do it freely, to accept him on that type of basis. The reason being is because if God programmed us to all accept him, then that's not really love. That is simply a recorder that's saying, I love you, God, I love you, God. Now, if we don't have the ability to walk away, we don't have the ability to walk towards.
Well, that's your definition of love. That's how you subjectively define what love is. But that doesn't actually make it the case.
Actually, something that's pretty specific.
Oh, okay. That's your assertion. But how are you going to back that up?
Well,
Adam and Eve.
Have you ever loved a woman?
Yeah.
Okay. During that time frame, did you not want to spend as much time with that person, get to know that person as deeply as possible, and do anything you could to please this person?
Sure. And to give you, let's use my child for an example, right? So I would never put my child in a position with somebody that could harm him or didn't have his best interest at heart. You're interrupting me again.
Well, you're making a scenario. Let's go ahead and get that right off the bat.
Well, I didn't say it was the scenario. I'm giving you an example of what love is, and you're interrupting me.
No. Real love would be knowing your child is going to do something stupid and help them understand what they did was wrong and help them to make peace, get it right, pay the price.
Well, the price.
I'm in prison right now that I'm telling him the same thing.
No,
you know what? Yes, I want what's best for my child, and right now, guess what? incarceration is what's best for my child.
No, the price, what you're talking about within world history, if that's the case, if what you're arguing is actually the case, is now children get horrible diseases, death comes in the world, there's unlimited amounts of pain and suffering.
Skyler.
There's lots of you're interrupting me again, you rude asshole. Why are you interrupting me?
That is not true.
Well, then why don't you wait till I'm finished and then make a rebuttal instead of interrupting me like an asshole?
We have all those things because of sin.
Well, yeah. That God created the consequences for. Are you denying that God created the consequences of sin?
God created everything that has been created.
Correct.
So when we go to hell, if somebody was to go to hell, what you're doing is you're getting your righteous judgment. And at that point, God's going to pull himself out of that, and that's going to be a horrific existence. For the
you didn't answer my question. God created the consequences of what sin would bring, correct?
Absolutely. Sin
okay, so
death,
hold on. So beautiful. It isn't just death, though. It's pain and suffering. It's children getting cancer. It's eternal hell. So God.
Cancer. It's not children getting cancer.
Oh, so then why is cancer in the world? Why do children get horrible diseases?
Because we have sin. Because guess what? Here's the deal. You got a busload of nuns going down the road, and they're all having a jolly time singing Kumbaya. Then you got a drunk coming the other way, hits head on the bus. Now the drunk is hardly injured. The bus catches on fire, kills all the nuns. All 12 of them gone. Well, wait a minute. What did that person do? What did those nuns do to deserve the death penalty? They did nothing. It's the consequences of somebody else's sin. So we, in this world, are living the consequences of other people's sins. I'm not saying that we don't sin. What I'm saying is that, again, some things happen because of other people's sins.
Yeah, but
God does that way those sins cause those things.
Yeah, he created the results of what would happen as the result of sin. And you admitted to that. So children getting cancer, all these things are results that God created those results.
That is not children getting cancer.
Well, then why is cancer here? If you say sin, it's because then he created the results of what would happen with sin. How are you not understanding this?
Something that God is saying, I think I'm going to punish this child, give him cancer. No,
I didn't say that.
The fact is, no, again, you're trying to imply that. The fact is
you
what...
just asked, Jim. You asked you fairly.
You said that the result of, you said the reason children get cancer is the result of sin. All right? Now the reactions to sin is caused by God. God created whatever consequences.
No. Don't.
Okay, so then things can exist that God didn't create. Who muted me?
Hal did.
Who's Hal?
Oh, but
sorry,
Hal's
I
a
didn't
good guy.
realize you were the one talking. Your mic was echoing. I didn't realize you were the one talking.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. God created whatever consequences would happen. So you have to then argue that then consequences of things can happen without God's creation.
Not at all. Because again, when we sin, we inherit all the crap that comes down our genetic trail. What does the Bible say about that? You know what? The Bible's very specific and says, you know what? Sometimes those ills, those sins are going to come down to generational, going to be what's called generational curses. That sometimes happens. But guess what? That's not because
of God setting it up that way.
Excuse me. That's not because that child did something wrong. That's because we live in a broken world. We live in a sin-broken world.
That's because God set it up that way.
I did not set it up that way.
No, I didn't say that. What I'm saying is sin would not have been passed down.
Setting it up this way. God made it so we could have a choice. We exercised our choice, and now we got to live with it.
Tell me this. Could sin have been passed down generation to generation without God's creation? Be able to do that?
Once again, that's a stupid question. I've answered it. We live in a sin-broken world, and we inherit the sin nature of our parents. We may actually inherit some of the consequences of their sins. Let's say if you have a mother that is a drug addict, you might be somebody addicted to drugs, born that way. How about if you're born an alcoholic? You know, again, those are some things that happen because of other people's sin.
Who made it possible for a sin nature to be passed down to a child?
I don't think we need to go down that path. We've already answered that.
God, right?
Next.
God. So therefore, your God is the cause of it. Okay, we can move on.
No, God is not the cause of it.
I noticed you have some tattoos on your arm.
You know what? God gave us the ability to not break His law. God gave us every good thing. He gave us everything we could ever want. and we had perfect bodies. We had perfect just being settled and loving our bodies. We were, ooh, man, we were all that. And then we turned around and screwed it up.
That's why we didn't wear the fig leaves. So we would walk around nude.
After the fall.
Well, even if we went by your logic, okay, fair enough. Let's go by. Let me. I'm going to accept your logic, right? Just for a moment to step into your worldview, right? So then, really, it was Adam and Eve who broke God's law, but then the children of Adam and Eve are being punished for what the parents did.
Nope. Here I'm going to say it again, really slow, so you can take notes, Skyler.
You don't need to slow it down.
Once again, Adam and Eve sinned. They are guilty of the death penalty for their sin. Now, are their children guilty of the death penalty for the sin? No. But they inherit the consequences thereof, because when Adam and Eve sinned, God cursed the earth, told man that he would have to till the soil for the rest of his days, and it would be a hard job. Okay? So, again, now we have to deal with all that. Now the woman has been told she won't be able to give kids unless it's in horrific pain, and that's what we see. Again, that's a consequence of the fall. Now, when we go to the next generation, do those kids suffer for those parents' sins? No, they suffer the consequences of what happened, but they are not guilty of the parents' sins. What ends up happening is the children are born with that sin nature just the same way they were born with a skin nature, a hair nature, eye nature, whatever it might be. They're born with a sin nature, and then they go out and commit their own sins, and then they are guilty and worthy of the death penalty.
It just seems to me, Jim, that we're Adam, even remotely a good man, knowing what he was getting the future generations into, he might well have just killed himself right then. Had he known, would you blame him?
Oh,
no,
gee,
you know, your sentence to me should have been death anyway.
Plain stupid.
Well, it seems like you might have done the world a big favor in some ways.
Yeah, who would all the world be descendant from, OG, if we didn't have Adam and Eve? You talk about great to the 40th power grandparents, that's Adam and Eve. We are all of a common descent, Adam and Eve. You kill one of them, we ain't here to talk about it.
Our God could have started over and did things a little differently.
Yeah, I think you've got to try to take time, Jim, to find some allegory in this. You've got to, because you say man was created in God's image, and God, if there's any rationalism at all to him, it flies in the face of that. This whole snake
it doesn't
story.
if you listen to what I said.
Exactly.
I understand your part about the love. I understand the free will gift. I buy that, actually. That makes sense to me. But the fact that it wasn't, a setup from the get-go, that suggests that God wasn't omnipotent, omniscient, and everything, because he had to have planned it that way or forecast it that way.
He would have known. He would not have caused it. God cannot look upon sin. God cannot look upon sin. So what ends up happening, God can allow us the free will choice, right or left, up or down, good or bad. God gives us the choice. Guess what? We choose the evil. We choose the evil way. God knows what the plan is going to be for the consequences, maybe even the penalty of the sin.
But God should have killed Adam for that.
No.
He said, for his sin.
And
you said
again,
at the beginning.
we wouldn't be here having to talk.
Well, that's true. Yeah. But I'm saying that God gave Adam a reprieve or something, and that was sort of the trade-off. Well, now you no longer get to live as this enlightened person that's not, subject to penalty of death or whatever. That's gone. I'm taking that off the table. You're going to work hard. The snake's going to bite at your heel. Now, this is not. So I'm just saying that that the results of that we can look at and argue productively, but that part of it is real. It seems incoherent.
Yeah, you sure do.
Well, here's the bigger point, right? So
I'm not even thinking about it that much. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay, Eugene. Well, so you keep claiming free will. So could you give me the scripture that clearly defines free will the way that you're using it?
Absolutely.
Sure.
You're given an opportunity to make a choice.
The scripture,
please. Do you obey what God says? Do you obey what God says, or do you disobey what God says? Whether you know what scripture is or not, internally we all are given the gift of a conscience. We all know innately that it's not a good thing to put babies on a grill. Doesn't matter who it is, where it is. That's a transcendent truth. Okay, that's a transcendent thing we all know is wrong. So
Scripture,
guess what?
please.
If
Give me the
we
scripture.
if
You're not
we
actually answering my
choose to
question.
do that, we have chosen to disobey God and disobey God's rules and His laws because we went out of our way to barbecue babies, whatever.
What? Can you give me the scripture now? You didn't actually answer the question.
Sure, I did.
No, you didn't. You didn't give me scripture.
Well, it's in the first part of Genesis. Actually, it's in Genesis chapter 3.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't define free will.
Actually, it sure does.
Okay, quote it.
It says, look, here you go. I'm going this way. God says, I'm going this way. Of the trees in this garden, you may have all of them. But, here we go, do not eat from this tree in the center of the garden.
Wink.
Oh, wait a minute. Now you're seeing that Adam and Eve have a choice. Do they go this way or do they go that way? There you go. It's not defined. It is giving us a visualization of free choice, free will.
You haven't clearly defined it.
And now Adam and Eve are standing there, and they're just doing their thing, and now they don't last 5 minutes before somebody convinces them that God is wrong. Because you know what the world's worst thing that people believe is, did God really say that? No, did God really say that?
Yeah, you
No.
said that earlier. So when you were talking about grilling babies, right? Like you would say, killing babies is always wrong, right?
Yep.
So like when God orders people to kill babies, that's morally wrong.
Nope.
You just said killing babies is always wrong.
If we did it, because we don't have the authority to do so. When God ordered different people groups to be taken out, like the Amalekites, the Sabusites, and all the other mites, God had a reason for that. And what ended up happening is again, King Saul, he was supposed to go out and wipe these people out. Well, he didn't. What happened? They came back and killed him. So again, God knows the consequences if we don't do what He calls us to do. Now, the people in those times when righteous judgment was levied on those particular people, that was completely holy and just. And any kind of sin or any kind of guilt is on the parents of those children for not obeying God. Same thing is true of the people in the flood.
So you don't really mean.
Okay, be right back.
I want to know what it means for God to have authority other than He can kick our ass.
Yeah, well, that's.
The old might makes right, Hal.
Yeah, there really is. I mean, it's really kind of what it comes down to, in a sense. I mean, they may say they might go to the clay. What can the clay tell the potter? Basically, kind of scripture. But you notice he completely avoid actually giving me scripture for real and explaining it because it actually doesn't exist. He's just
here's the deal these guys are up against. They're afraid that, and he cannot say that he came up with his version of scriptural interpretation simply by himself. The underlying school of thought that hillbilly comes from is common to certain parts of the United States since, say, 1825 or whatever. This Bible literalism. And I think what the Bible literalists are genuinely afraid of is that one tiny little thing in the Bible comes under contention, that the whole thing gets thrown in the toilet. You know?
Earlier Christian hillbilly was saying, so what if Christianity makes no sense? I'm going to believe in it anyway.
Say that again. I'm sorry, I missed it. What'd you say?
Earlier Christian hillbilly basically said, so what if Christianity doesn't make any sense? I'm going to be a Christian anyway.
Oh, he's probably said something like that.
Gotta go run some errands, boys and girls. Y'all have a great day. God bless.
He was saying, so what if it doesn't make sense? I'm not going to question God.
Yeah, it's man. I mean, I've got the thing about it is with people like Christian hillbilly and things. It's. I mean, I was a Christian at one point. I understand what it's like to be kind of like in your worldview and not be able to step out of it, right? Especially depending on how. I don't want to make fun of him too much, but it is whatever your intelligence level is, right? Your capability to be able to free think, to be able to empathize with others and kind of put yourself in other positions. And it's difficult. It's difficult to get out, and especially something so personal, right? Something that you feel so strongly about, you've dedicated your life to. That guy, I think he was a minister, if I'm correct. I think I've heard him say he was like a priest, or not a priest.
Yeah, because he's got like 20. You're talking about Hillbilly. Jim was just here. He's got about 20 years of this kind of ministry, so he knows better. I mean, he could do better. And what Hal has pointed out too is basically he's almost caught exposed Christian Hillbilly lying to himself.
Yeah.
I wish I could say exactly what Hal just did that Jim fessed up to the other day. What was that again, Hal? That even if it didn't make sense or whatever?
Yeah, even if it doesn't make sense, he's going to believe it anyway.
Well, that's a lie. Nobody in their right mind would say that.
I think you guys are being too hard on Christian Hillbilly. I think he has a very high IQ.
Well,
Wait. That's my joke. Interruption. Interruption.
I was very high IQ. You out there for a second. I was like, let me hear this guy out. See where
all he talks about is the Bible, and he acts like the Bible is the foremost authority on everything, and his whole life revolves around it. And he doesn't have a basic understanding of it.
No, you're right.
Do you think that it's even productive for even maybe not for entertainment, but otherwise to try and engage Christian Hillbilly in a systematic discussion about the problem of evil or suffering? That's a rhetorical question. You know the answer is no, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And to ask him where the Bible defines free, I think that's, with due respect, I don't think that's, because I don't think that any such scriptures, define things by standards that would be acceptable to, say, in modern analytic philosophy, where they're going to give a definition, X has free will if and only if 1, 2, 3, 4. That's never going to happen.
Right? But the Bible is contradictory to what Christian Hillbilly wants to call free will.
Yeah, and I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not looking for like a 100% specific definition, but at least something that can like at least lend itself to it a little bit, like some form of argument to it. Like you can go to like the biblical definition of love by going to Corinthians, and you have some kind. It's not going to be a complete, absolute definition, but at least there's something to it. You know what I'm saying? And it's really when I ask people those questions, it's just to get them thinking. I know the answer to it, obviously. I'm sorry.
It's another issue, which is, do you even think that free will is a meaningful or easy enough notion to even define? I don't think so.
No.
So
I ask if someone's actually, say, in need of being enlightened. What would that someone be like? Or how does someone who is in need of enlightenment or whatever it is be different from Christian Hillbilly?
Patch up, Dave.
Why is he not someone you would try to enlighten?
Well, I think you can meet people who are generally like willing to hear ideas, right? Like someone who's willing to listen to other point of views would be someone that you could enlighten, right? If someone's not willing to at all, like, even conceive of a different worldview than their own, then it's fruitless. It's never going to change.
Okay, but with Christian Hillbilly, it's not just that he's unable. I think to some extent there's an overlap here. It's it's a psychological issue. He's unwilling and unable, right? Yeah. He just can't do it, dude. He just doesn't get it. Right, I was listening, in on your discussion about, God causing stuff. He's making elementary about immediate and less immediate causes and responsibility. I was like, this guy doesn't get that.
Yeah.
I don't know how far you can. I mean, he's certainly not completely closed. I don't think anyone is. But there's only so much you can do with the guy before he repeats his script, which is what he was doing.
He's not interested in having an honest back and forth. He just wants to preach.
That too. So there's so many layers of just opposition to any kind of discussion. But it's entertainment.
You really got it right. You got it right. And one thing I'm beginning to gather about you, Newt, is that you may not admit it all the time, but I think you genuinely like people, maybe even love them. And a guy like Christian, you got to have. I have some hope that somewhere, because once in a while you'll see a hint or two of intelligence, and I think Nadia's right, at least holding it out to him to try to bolster his arguments with something else. This snake thing just really tripped me up today. I don't know how. Adam didn't make the snake. Eve didn't make the snake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not going to get him to... What you can do with him is you might make him at best, in this sort of way of discussing things with him, and even any, actually, but less so in the other ways I have in mind, which I don't want to talk about. You might get him to, for 5 minutes, think, yeah, you got a good point. But
yeah.
what tends to happen is he'll either, he'll wipe the hard drive, which is what I call it. The next day, it's
You
gone.
go back to his prayer closet.
Yeah, it's just, or he'll come up with a really stupid response to it, which is good enough for him.
I've never heard him admit someone had a good point. He just gives stupid responses constantly.
Okay.
I could suggest so. I mean, maybe they're more difficult, but who's most desperately in need of?
Like he'll ask a question that would be difficult for him to answer, and he's just like, "Well, I already answered that."
Okay, well, it could still be possible. I agree with that, Hal. I'm thinking back to my experiences with him, because I know he's been on Paltalk too. But it could also be the case that he might, in his mind, think that somebody's got a good point, but he might not say so. So, but yeah, you're right. He's never actually, as far as I remember, admitted that somebody actually has a good point.
Can such a Christian find redemption in an atheist world?
I'm not so sure. Nadia has had some success with Christian, actually.
Oh yeah, tell us. I'm interested. Like what?
As I remember it, there was the issue where he would. Nadia, are you there?
Yeah, I am.
Cool. I hope you don't mind me talking about this.
Go ahead.
Well, I seem to remember when he first came on, he was even more belligerent than currently. And he would only refer to you in male pronouns. Whereas that changed after a while when he accepted the point of, what's the word, civility in the better part of someone's nature. Is that accurate?
Well, he's not granting me feminine pronouns, but he tries to avoid the use of pronouns altogether. I think he slips up, and when he slips up, he kind of goes both ways. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's what I was referring to. When he first came on, he would.
Go ahead.
Say again, Hal.
You should tell Christian Hillbilly that he goes both ways.
Hey, Ocean.
Okay, I kind of need to back up and go. I think the bus is due to stop at where I need to be picked up in. Let me see how many minutes. Bear with me. I love motion. I'll turn off camera. Yeah, it's like 2:53, so I have 2 minutes. All right. Yeah, I better unplug right now.
Hey, Ocean. You can fall into my trap, can't you?
By the hammer of Thor, it is Ocean.
Oh, he's got no mic again. Hooray! Hey, Ocean. Your mum says hi, by the way.
Oh, no, and he can't talk back? Oh.
This is great. We can talk shit about
him. Most beloved beard on the internet.
I wanted you guys to ask Hillbilly if people on Mars have to use the Earth calendar and the Earth time.
I wanted to, Iron, but I couldn't figure out where you were going with that. I couldn't figure it out.
What was that about?
I asked Mac before, and he said they do when it comes to like the Sabbath and stuff like that.
Why would you ask him that? What was that about, the calendar thing? Oh, it was about the Sabbath?
Just to see how open-minded they were.
He's saying it was made in like 7 literal Earth days, right? So like, do people on Mars have to stop and do the Sabbath in like the middle of the day if the time doesn't match up, or how does that
shit,
work?
That's a good question.
What are the day? How long is a Martian day?
I think a Martian day is like 23 hours. So like their year is also longer. So they have more days, and like they might have more leap year type things.
Right, definitely their year's longer. That's pretty obvious. I was just wondering about the day in terms of rotations. 23 hours. That's interesting.
Okay, people, I've got a plug. I have to leave.
It's 24 hours and 37 minutes.
All right, I have to
There's 687 days.
Yeah, I have to pull the plug. I've got to go to various kinds of things. Go ahead.